Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for October 20th, 2020. There is no 10 a.m. session. There is no public testimony taken during this review session.
Okay.
The first item is zoning calendar. New cases 2020-61 BZ, 342-346 East 104th Street. This is the East Harlem Scholars Academy Charter School.
We have proof of service of initial application to officials and proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. The community board recommendation we didn't receive yet because they just met, or they're supposed to have met on October 14th. If we got the recommendation in the interim, please send it to the commissioners, and for the project manager, please reach out and see if it was written. We do have a letter in support from Council Member Ayala. We have two other letters in support from neighbors. I do have to say that, you know, as a former landmarks commissioner, I see with sadness that demolition of the 1915 St. Lucy's church structure has begun, or at least the pilings have begun, and wonder why its form that is built full to the lot lines wasn't incorporated into the school design. The school is one of the rare typologies that can take advantage of the adaptive reuse of a church because it needs the large spaces. And in fact, this building had been used in part as a parochial school with windows on the sidewall. So it's actually has elements in it that could be reused. In my opinion, it's very wasteful to have not attempted to reuse the structure, which per force was built better than a new structure probably will be, just because it's a heavy masonry building from 1915. Construction methods were just more robust. And given that the church is built full to the lot lines with a lot coverage exceeding allowable, in fact, it's full to the lot lines, right? And no rear or side yards, wouldn't it reduce the proposed scope of the waivers if at least its basic structure were maintained? So you could have elements of the cathedral. There's images on Google of the interior of the church. So anyway, to jump into the case itself, I'd like to understand what is a provisional charter and what does it mean that it's extended only up until December 2020? What is the status of the application to DCAS to remove the restrictive covenants on the use of lots 30 and 31, which are allowing only recreational use on those lots? DOT school safety provided a conditional letter of approval where it says, please have the applicant confirm that the authorized parking spots on East 104th Street that have been assigned to the faculty of East Harlem tutoring program will continue to be used by its subsidiary, the faculty of East Harlem Scholars Academy High School. All the existing drop curbs along the East 104th Street frontages should be eliminated and reconstructed as full height curb and sidewalk, and have the applicant upgrade all the existing pedestrian ramps at the intersection of East 104th and First Avenue in accordance with latest ADA standards, but otherwise they're supportive of the application. I'd like them to provide clearer information about the entry court, including a plan at the same scale as P07. The very unclear site plan P02 has little information and appears to indicate steps going up to the school. Maybe it's the way they're indicating a ramp, but it looks like steps. What is the treatment of the entry court and the blank wall of the adjacent building on lot 29? For instance, is it landscaped? It should be. I mean, it's got a public face to it. It should be landscaped or treated in some formal way. And how are they handling the blank wall that it's up against? They need to provide a lateral section through the building that includes the form of the buildings to the rear and the impact of the rear yard obstruction on those buildings at lots 17, 19, 2020 and 21, and as compared to the impact by the existing church and other existing buildings. Sorry, I'm trying to just make it beep less. I find it very strange that there is no mention at all in the statement of facts about the mass of the existing church building as a way of comparing the proposed rear yard obstruction and building height to existing neighborhood conditions. There is a building that's been there since 1915 that's imposed into the rear yard for 105 years, and there's no mention of it in the neighborhood character discussion. They need to provide also existing conditions, plans, and sections. That's also by way of understanding what the conditions are on the existing lots. So we'll be able to compare them to what's proposed. There's a level change at the first floor to access the gym. Why is that? They're dropping that down below the base flood elevation. And why is only 2/3 of the building being dry flood proof? The effect of it is the gym forces the dry flood proofing. Why isn't that lifted above base flood? I don't understand that. This is in an AE 11 zone. The drawings show it in an AE 12 zone. That's incorrect unless the firm map they provided is incorrect. Clarify that the materials shown on the drawings as stucco are actually a cement stucco applied over masonry and not the infamous exterior foam insulation material. Indicate all finished materials on all facades, including at the bulkheads. The stucco arrow, there's an arrow from the word stucco on P15 that points to nothing, to space. And why aren't the roof obstructions screened or within maximum coverage limits? They need to provide a graphic explanation of how the roof obstructions exceed section 64-332 and section 23-62, and why they need to exceed requirements and not be screened. I mean, screening is just basic, the aesthetics of the neighborhood and sound absorption. So I don't understand why they're not screened at the very least. Explain in greater detail what the college access room is for. There's a typo associated with the explanation of that use at page 18 in the statement of facts. How frequently is the room used by each grade level? Is it only after school? They should provide a room schedule for this use and explain why the function could not be provided in other rooms in the building. And I asked that because I think the function wasn't well described. Is it instead intended to supplant what would normally be a library or a computer room? Neither of which I see as program offers, which seems odd. So maybe what the space is a combined library, computer room, study hall, all of those things. And also in response to that, how does the college access advisory office work, which they're describing as being something that seems to me to be sort of private, where you would be talking to a counselor about where you might go to college. It doesn't have any privacy. How does that office make the cafeteria and suite, college access suite, quote, highly visible as stated in the needs report? That was a paragraph there I just didn't understand. And what determined the size of the theater or dimensions of the gym? There are no standards that were provided for either of those. And is there the bicycle parking seems to keep showing up on the DOB objection sheet. And then it even shows up somewhere in the statement of facts about the need for a waiver of bicycle parking, but then it doesn't carry through the statement of facts. And I don't understand what the issue is because it looks enclosed. So is there a problem about the bicycle parking? And then I didn't find the refrigerated trash storage area. They should also describe the trash management plan, and there needs to be a refrigerated trash storage area. How are perishables and other trash brought down to the trash room from the third floor kitchen cafeteria? Because the elevator is pretty far away. Is there a dumbwaiter? How are they handling trash removal during meal times? I'm assuming there's like a breakfast and a lunch and maybe even some kind of an evening meal for after school programs. There's a typo in the statement of facts on page 13 about the maximum building height and citation to the proper section of the zoning resolution. It cites the section 64-111. There is no such thing. Where is the demonstration that this project would have, quote, qualifying ground floor, unquote, which is a defined term in the zoning resolution, which would entitle it to an 85-foot maximum building height under section 23-662B1 Roman numeral 2, and also compliance with supplemental ground floor provisions at 23-662B2. So you can't say that the maximum allowable height is 85 feet if you don't have this complying qualifying ground floor space. I didn't understand or see on the drawings what physical noise mitigation efforts are proposed to protect nearby receptors from noise generated by the third floor roof recreational area. They have to point that out on the drawings, draw it, and then show what those both on plan and elevation and section, and show what those mitigating elements are. I actually only see the attenuation requirements for the school itself, so to prevent the students inside the building from being disturbed by activities outside the building. And on the roof at the third floor terrace, there are these boxes. Are those skylights? If yes, they don't appear in the sections. And is that to light the gym? I didn't understand why you would need skylights that essentially obstruct the use of the roof terrace. Sometimes we see ventilation exhaust or intake, probably intake, which is different and maybe can't be gotten from anywhere else, but skylights I don't get. And then I would ask, if it's ventilation, did the noise studies take into account their potential impact on area receptors? If it's intake or exhaust, hopefully not exhaust where students are, but if it's intake, often they make noise. And so that needs to be taken into account. Generally in terms of the drawings, there are a lot of shapes on the drawings that aren't labeled. So you just have to guess when you're looking at the drawings what they are. I wish the drafts people were more careful about labeling everything that's on the drawings and what is not necessary to take it out. The proposed is a 6-story building that exceeds the 85-foot height limit, if that's applicable. I need better clarity on what happens on the 6th floor that didn't happen in the 5-story as of right building, since the classroom count looks the same. For example, what if the waivers were only for the front setback and the rear yard obstruction? What would the school be missing? This is to understand whether it's the minimum variance necessary. The statement of facts claims that certain dimensions are required for each use, yet the floor plans aren't dimensioned at all. For example, the claim is that the as of right corridor is too narrow, but there are no corridor widths on either set of plans. The statement of facts claims the classrooms in the as of right are too narrow, but likewise, there are no dimensions, et cetera, et cetera. This goes for everything that's claimed as being too small. I know there must be more detailed drawings available for this project. You don't get this far without getting into design development. So perhaps the architect can provide them to eliminate the guesswork as informational, and also to put the correct dimensions on the drawings. And then when I look at the few dimensions there are, I see a really strange conflict between the arguments. The as of right shows a 62-foot, 2-inch deep building at the typical floor that includes an 8-foot, 9-inch front setback and a 30-foot rear yard. And please correct the dimension from 29-foot, 10 inches to 30 feet in the as of right. This is one of the faults of CAD that allows you to let's say, state junk on dimensions. While the proposed, we have a 62'2" deep building at the as of right with the setbacks that are required. The proposed shows a 59'11" deep building with no front setback and a 30-foot, or I have to assume a 30-foot because that's what we're being told is being provided, rear yard. So one set of plans is very incorrect, or the proposed has a 40-foot rear yard, and the argument about the needed extra depth from the front setback fails. Because they showed us a drawing that seems to be the same depth as the as of right, and they're able to get all of everything they need into it without the front setback waiver. The programmatic needs report has better dimensions for the as of right, but they are column or grid based. So as opposed to the size of the room base, so it's column to column lengths. So very difficult to figure out what's going on. And in any case, it doesn't support the arguments with direct information. There are also no such dimensions in that report for the proposed, which also shows what appears to be a 40-foot rear yard if you believe the few dimensions that are provided. So I just did math based on a 100-foot deep lot. So I just have to ask, because I always do when I'm so astonished at those kinds of submissions. Didn't anyone look at these drawings before they were submitted? It undermines the argument for the waiver. And then I'd like, in this context, a site survey so we can understand exactly what we're talking about here. And they need to provide contextual imagery of the project on the block. There's been no effort to show the building in context, that it would be sort of would fit in with neighborhood character. And upon what is the statement of facts relying when it discusses area, building heights, et cetera, on page 27? The statement of facts says it's consistent with area building heights, but we don't have a study of building heights, so they need to provide that backup data. And sorry for the long report. Those are my comments. Let me just see if there's seeker. We have open hazmat.
Air quality, noise, DOT, I think, yeah.
Yeah, air quality, noise, WRP, waterfront consistency, and school safety set their comments, but I think there might be a DOT, open DOT. Jella, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to clarify something on the community board, since I was on the email where the applicant responded.
Okay.
They actually only went to the land use committee last week.
Oh, okay.
So they have to also present to the education committee because the land use committee requested that. That's my understanding of that, and that will be scheduled soon. And they can the applicant can update you on anything further from that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and maybe Tracy wants to jump in about seeker.
Sure. The hazmat, we did get approval of the work plan in HASP, an expedited approval, so they can start the phase 2 work. In terms of noise, I believe a supplemental report is going to be submitted concerning what you were talking about with the exact sound attenuation. They're working with the architect to determine what fences are needed. And they're creating some sort of models to determine what may be the best option. And yes, there's open DOT. We did get some comments, and we're expecting a response soon to those seeker comments and the school safety comments.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so Vice Chair Shanda.
Thank you. So first of all, with regards to the waivers, per zoning resolution 24-57 through zoning resolution zoning resolution 24 section 24-57, Through zoning resolution special permit 7364, height and setback regulations can be modified except zoning resolution section 23-67 to zoning resolution section 23-69. So my question is, why wasn't zoning resolution section 73-64 special permit height and setback regulation not considered for this? Since they're not seeking any floor area waiver or so why was not that? And the other one is section zoning resolution section 23-67 and zoning resolution section 23-69 do not apply to this case. Is it only zoning resolution section 23-68, special provision for zoning lots divided by zoning district boundaries, since it is required and because it's requiring a variance as opposed to a special permit? That was one of the questions I had. I had actually some concerns with regards to, I think it's a proposal wise, it's not the issue. It's really trying to understand why the as of right does not work. And that lies, there are two parts of this lot. There is the portion that's fronting on 104th Street, and there's the portion that is fronting on First Avenue. The applicant, neither in its drawing nor in its statement, has at all stated why that First Avenue frontage is free of any structure. And why is it not being built? Because the maximum permitted community facility in this area on this lot is 77,000 square feet. And the as of right can be increased to accommodate that floor area. It is much underbuilt, and the reason for it being underbuilt is partly because it's constrained by the requirements of the lot that is in the along the 104th Street, and it's not being built at all on the First Avenue portion. The bulk and the floor area can be achieved by building out the space along First Avenue in the as of right. And I'm going to make that same suggestion that be considered for proposed also. And for example, the frontage of the site on First Avenue, though narrow, is a space where you can have a lot of the office spaces. You can actually even locate the college program there or the cafeteria. There are programs that can fit into that space, and that can free up the space for classrooms on the 104th Street portion of the building. And you can and then reduce the amount of waiver. There's some waivers that I think are reasonable, but there's some of the other waivers can be reduced or be eliminated in the process. So moving on to the proposed one. The statement of fact is not clear with regards to the building height on page 8. It states the building height to be 109 feet. Continuing on the proposed, the plan and the programmatic need does not state the purpose of the open area along First Avenue. It needs to be provided. It seems it will be providing an entrance to the school. And my question is, why does it have to be only from First Avenue? Why can't it be from 104th Street? And why cannot the frontage of First Avenue be built up? By relocating the entrance from First Avenue to 104th Street, the administrative office, mechanical spaces, cafeteria, college area, nurse's office, storage can be stacked along the 25-foot by 100-foot space along First Avenue. And this would free up the space on second floor and third floor to relocate the classrooms or some of the specialty classrooms, and can reduce probably the upper floor and the height and setback requirement on the 6th floor. It will also reinforce the street wall continuity along First Avenue. And like I said, of the waivers we have typically granted and we have seen and makes sense for a school is allowing a double height gym in the school, and that would encroach the rear yard waiver, or allowing the school to have a street wall that continues beyond the setback requirement, or not to require the setback of 18 foot from the lot line. Those things seem reasonable, but I don't know if the 6th floor is required, or if it can be set back, especially if you stack up some of the uses on First Avenue. And those are really my main comments. In terms of the neighborhood, the uses that are located, the building is already being torn down. Based on my very recent site visit, the buildings that are along 103rd Street, they are like a kind of a quasi manufacturing, like a storage facility.
Yeah.
Completely. And then we have a White Castle at the corner of 103rd and First Avenue with a drive-through. So just in terms of the neighborhood, the sound measures that is coming from all the other areas. Those are my comments, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holly Brown?
So I just want to say to begin with that as a parent of 3 young people who went through various stages in public education, I'm always thrilled to see charter school programs and other types of programs that are targeted towards young people who are not of means. And so when I see a school like this that's going to provide a lot of the same things that a lot of the very wealthy private schools provide for their students, I'm thrilled to see that. So for that, I really am supportive of this project. My question really has to do with the classroom sizes and whether or not a lesser variance could be entertained here. So in detail, the applicant is relying on 2 different references when they're talking about their classroom sizes. One is the 2014 building code, which sizes classrooms at 20 square feet per student. And the other one is the instructional footprint for high school, which shows classroom target sizes between 500 and 750 square feet, with the ultimate target being 700 square feet for 25 students. But when you look at both of them, side by side, if you went with the building code, you could actually accommodate 35 to 38 students in a classroom versus the 25 students that the instructional footprint for high school is suggesting in the 700 square foot spaces. So my question is, which one of these take precedence and why? And is it possible to size down those proposed classrooms from 700 feet down a little bit in order to provide setbacks? So that's one of my questions. The other question has to do with, and it's not...
Commissioner Otley Brown, there was a portion that you got cut off at the last statement. Can you repeat it again?
Oh, yeah. The question was, how do you basically reconcile both of those New York City references? Which one takes precedence and why? And is it possible to size down those target classrooms smaller than 700 square feet to like 500 square feet? So perhaps you could provide some sort of a setback on the upper floors while not compromising the quality of education that the students would get within those classrooms.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The next question is not as much a question as a strong suggestion that the 3rd floor rear terrace should definitely not have lighting or amplified sound and should not be used after dark. Those are my questions.
Okay, and that's a pretty standard request from the board that there's no after dark activities on those outdoor spaces. Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to mention first that I did visit the site, and I believe the the buildings on the front of the proposed school are residential. The area is very quiet, so I would suggest that they're going to be very careful with the measures they are taking to make sure that no sound or noise impacts will be imposed on adjacent residential. Either on the same side where the school is located or on the opposite side of the street. And the street actually is not that very wide street. I would say it's a narrow street compared to others like First Ave. So this is one of the concerns I have. The other thing, I did read in the statement of facts on page 8 that they are referencing the height of the building, the base height. to what is called FRCE. It's FRCE is an abbreviation that's not defined in the statement of fact. I understand this as the base flood elevation or design flood elevation,
Time flood, yeah.
but I'm not sure if the abbreviation FRCE is the right abbreviation to go with.
No, that's considered freeboard, and that's actually what is often used in the building code, right?
Okay.
So it's design flood and otherwise known as freeboard. I believe they're the same, but with some uses, it's one more foot. So with most
It's 1 foot above the base flood elevation, which is the DFE. But I'm not familiar with FRCE terminology, so that's why.
Yeah.
I thought it might be a typo.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. I want a little bit more on the programmatic needs. I'd like an explanation as to why, and I'm not objecting to the administrative officers being at the location, but why that they are taking, I'd like to explain why that's necessary in their programmatic statement.
Say again, why the administrative offices or what?
Need to be where they're located, and I think they're adding it. But one of them is on the main floor, and if it looks like the layout, these administrative offices seem to be creating a need for some of the waivers, and I just want to know why they, if they can explain why they need to be there. Just a sentence or two, because some of it is pretty obvious, because some of it's social workers, etc. And so I just want something about that in their statement. I think that they should put something to the regards of sound attenuation in their statement of facts, what steps are taking. I don't want to be repetitive about the third floor terrace and the noise that I believe would emanate from there. And that, I think everything else has been stated.
Okay, thank you. And just for Commissioner Sheta's information, FRCE stands for flood resistive construction elevation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Move on.
Yeah, I just want to check if there's any other last minute comments before we move on. Okay.
Next item, continued hearing items, 2016-4463 BZ, 62 14th Avenue, 1370 67th Street, 62nd Street, sorry, Brooklyn. This is also a school, Moda Satmar.
Okay. Sorry. So this is continued.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, just sorry. It's a long time since we heard this one. Last time we heard was December, so almost a year. The cover letter is responding to many of our comments from the last time. But with respect, this is actually like so many of our variance applications for schools, it's coupled with a 7319 application for use in an M district, right? So with respect to the 7319 school definition qualification question, because without it, we can't consider it as a school. I'd like to know where the support for the statements that are made in the statement of facts are, that the school satisfies the curricular requirements of New York State Education Law 3204, 3205, and 3210. This board is accustomed to seeing much more information about a school's program than was provided in the statement of facts. And usually there is a pedagogical approach that supports the program and a detailed schedule of class instruction for each day. What is that in this case? In order to get accredited by New York State, there's a requirement of curriculum that is set forth. Normally we see that. And we need to see that here to qualify for a 7319 special permit. With respect to the site search that's also required by the 7319 special permit, I'm still not understanding it. Why does the search only list sites that are not available? We discussed this at the last hearing. We've discussed it at many other hearings. If there was an actual search conducted, the broker employed would have provided a list of available sites. This is a list of unavailable sites. And also I ask, why is the catchment area so limited if students arrive by bus? So the normal method of working is you go to your broker and you say to the broker, I'm looking for a piece of property that meets these needs. And then the broker gives you a list and then you drive around and you look at those properties. That's not what happened here. So it's not complying as far as I can tell, and leave it to Commissioner Otley Brown to weigh in, give her opinion. But as far as I can tell, that's not satisfying the criteria. With respect to the as of right, I am also not getting why the structure is treated as two separate ones. In the as of right, it's two different structures. The adjusted maximum floor area rule that doesn't apply to lots merged after 1961 does not prohibit a building on a single zoning lot. It only requires that the building comply with the lot coverage and floor area regulations applicable in each district. The yard regulations don't apply along the district boundary line because there is no lot line in that location. So you can't have a side yard where there's no side lot line. This so-called as of right is artificially creating an impossible situation and doesn't represent what could actually be built. Furthermore, all of the zoning calculations on as of AOR-2A continue to treat the site as a pre-61 lot. So I'm really confused. Only section 77-02 applies to this lot unless there is proof that it predated 1961 or an applicable amendment date. 7702 sends you right to the bulk regulations in each of the applicable R and M districts. You don't look at anything else unless you're doing a quality housing building. So which this is not. So I do want to point out though that the history of this lot should really be researched, since I found a 1974 deed for the entirety of the subject lot, and it refers to a 1964 deed of same named people. Whether it was all single zoning lot, I don't know, but it's possible that the lot in its entirety pre-existed 61 under common ownership, but that needs to be researched. To determine the impact of the revised building height on neighborhood character, we need context drawings, none of which were provided. With respect to the vaults, which we talked about at the last hearing, in addition to needing revocable consents for these, the direction was to ensure that the vaults don't prohibit street tree growth. That's one reason we talked about them. So I want to hear from the Department of Parks. I want the applicant to reach out to the Department of Parks, that the proposed vault distances from the curb provide for street trees and their root lengths. And anyway, I'd like to know what the reason is for such extensive vaults along the entire frontage of this corner lot. It seems to me a little bit like a land grab unnecessarily. Most of our projects do not use vaults that go into city property. I'm not understanding why this one is. And also, what about its impact on neighborhood utilities? I would like our staff in this case, to reach out to DEP and DOT about the proposed vaults. Yeah, because I'm concerned about the extent of the vaults, and most of the time they're not that extensive. And why were the number of on-street trees reduced? I think it's not okay to reduce the on-street trees. There's no excuse for it. There's no curb cuts, nothing. They need to provide a detail section through the parapet wall and the acoustical fence. They should make notes on all the drawings consistent with respect to the height and materials of the acoustical barrier. The fence must be set back from the parapet wall to allow the fire department access and to reduce the impact of the view of this fence from the street, because it's making the structure look much taller than it is. They need to show dimensions at the fence setback line in the plan. I don't find the notation for window wall attenuation on the plans, even though I think it was promised in the cover letter. I note that the site at present appears to accommodate the parking of many school buses. Where will the buses already at this location park after the building is built? And where is the lease for the off-street parking of the buses required for this school? The location described in the statement of facts as a potential site for school bus parking at 1453 55th Street is in an R6 residential zoning district where public parking lots are not permitted. And anyway, the site is only 50 feet wide and 100 feet deep. So my reaction to this little portion of the discussion is essentially, please do this thing the right way. And I'm still waiting until the appropriate time for a school safety analysis. I'm not sure that we're able to do those analyses yet. I don't believe we have DOT school safety sign off either, and those analyses need to be done. I think Tracy Benke mentioned that the moratorium on these studies has lifted, but I don't know how they do school safety because schools aren't fully in action.
Actually, yeah, I was going to give you an update on that. The moratorium was lifted, but unfortunately, because this school is in what's designated recently as a COVID zone, DOT has advised that no traffic counts can be taken in the COVID zones. So they might have to wait a while until those areas are no longer COVID zones to do any further. So I'm trying to reach out to DOT to see if there's any data in the area that can be applicable to this school.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you want to continue? I can read your review, but there you are. Why don't you tell me?
Well, my computer's sort of frozen at the moment, but
okay. I'll just read. The noise is open. They revised the noise study received and sent to DEP on October 2nd. Air quality is open, basically same comments. We have an LPC client sign off and an E-designation approved for hazmat. And so it's DOT noise and air quality. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And Chair Shanda?
I agree with all the comments you have raised. Those were pretty much my comments. Also, I would like to know if FDNY has reviewed the revised plan. I also agree that the alternate site search is inadequate and does not respond to the comments the way it has been conducted. It has been done more as a, it's like we found the site, now prove how the other sites are not, why we pick, like just provide a letter that shows we don't have any sites available. There really was not a thorough analysis as one would do has been done. There has been no map provided with the data chart to indicate where it's located, what are the sites, none of those details have been provided. So I didn't think it was adequate. I agree with you with regards to the vault. I do not know why the vaults proposed is so aggressive. It can be shallower to allow for street trees. And also the waiver for the street tree is also not warranted. It's not justified. I did have one question, and that was with regards to the rooms. One of the classrooms, I think there are title rooms that are proposed, so it wasn't quite clear to me what title rooms were. So if the applicant could clarify that. And I agree with the zoning questions that you raised.
And I remember at the last hearing, actually, I think a number of us spoke about, but Commissioner Sheta talked a lot about so many therapy rooms. There, maybe therapy isn't the right word, but maybe that's a general term for it. But we see so many schools, and we don't usually see this many special kinds of rooms that are kind of unclear what they are. And my understanding is the title, whichever title it is, it's a civil rights title that has to do with disabilities. But wouldn't that be the same thing as a therapy room? So I don't understand that. Thank you. Are those your comments?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Ollie Brown?
So in reference to your comments that you had kicked to me about the site search, you're absolutely right. The key here is sites that are available in an as of right district. And so you really have to go to the broker and ask what have you got that's available? This is what I'm looking for. And they will show you a list of available sites. Then analyze the sites that they provide for you. And you could even say, this one is too small, this one is too small, this one is too small. But it's not meeting the finding to say, when I look at the map and I look at sites that are large, there are buildings on them, so I can't put something there. That's not what the finding is about. The finding is about your ability to find an available site in an as-of-right district to locate your school. So that's just added to your statement to give them a little more detail of what we're looking for. So as for my reading, and I just have a few questions, and not in any order of importance, but just as I found them. So for instance, on the plans, the rooftop play area has a 4-foot-high masonry wall plus an 8-foot-high steel chain link fence with 2 layers of acoustic-fence sound barrier. But then when you look at the elevations on the plan, it says there's a 10-foot-high acoustic fence barrier. So which one is right between the actual floor plan and the elevations? I had asked a question about what references they were using for their square footage of classroom space per student. And I expected that they were going to cite to some reference manuals that are used in the cities, but instead they were citing to other cases that were granted by the BSA and showing that they fit within the range. But that's not very helpful, because I don't even know in those other cases whether or not the applicants in those cases were requesting floor area waivers or not. Here you're requesting a floor area waiver. And so because you are, you need to justify the use of your floor area. And the way you do that is based on the city's reference manuals or the state's reference manuals regarding space that should be afforded per student in a school. Same thing concerning their statement about the gross square footage per student. They're saying they're allowing 70 square feet per student, and it's comparable to 5 BSA cases, and they cite the BSA cases where the gross square footage per student is 78 gross square feet to 134 gross square feet, and their 70 is within that range. But again, were those cases in which the floor area was as of right, or were those cases where the floor area was the floor area waiver was being requested? Mm-hmm. And then as for their amended school growth chart, which is now for 5 years instead of the, I think, 8 years, they've slowed the growth rate, and just about all of the different ages show an increase from the current to the first year, but grades 1A, 4th grade, and 10th grade actually show a decrease in students from the current to the first year. And I'm just wondering why there are decreases in those grades. And I just want to say I'm still awaiting the safety of walkers analysis, and they say they're still working on that. So I just don't want that to be dropped off the face of the earth because it's not ready yet, and then people forget we really wanted it.
Sorry. The analysis of the walkers, how many people walk to school, you mean?
No, I was saying that just, I think originally they were talking about how the walkers, it was like an informal thing. Staff live in the neighborhood and they'll monitor the walkers as they're walking themselves. And I didn't think that that was very detailed. And I didn't think it was well thought out plan. They needed to develop some kind of a plan to monitor the walkers as they leave the area. And so they were supposed to be giving that.
Okay. And in terms of the grades that are reducing, it's 1A, 4th, and 10th? Is that
yeah.
Right? Okay. Okay. And then, what was I going to say? To pick up on a point that you mentioned about using other BSA cases as the model, the programmatic needs of other schools often rely on larger classrooms or more space for students because they have a pedagogical approach that's different than the standard school. So you can't really use that. Instead, as you say, you have to use standards. You can't use BSA cases without knowing that for example, my favorite that I always refer to is that music school, I think on Upper Broadway, that had to have very large corridor spaces for practice areas for the kids to like jam in the halls. So it actually had a larger gross per student because of their pedagogical needs. So yeah, I agree with that. Thank you. Commissioner Sheta?
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the class size, I had last hearing, I had an issue with the class size. I thought that it's like largely bigger than typical. They provided us with response like Commissioner Arthur Brown mentioned, but I concur with her that if you're asking for floor area waiver, which is the case here, we are asking almost for double the as of right. The class size should be reasonable. And if I have to compare, I would compare with either something from the SCA or with school cases that we're not asking for floor area waiver, and even on the lower tier of that class size. But in this case, I still see that they are insisting that the class size they are proposing is fine. I respectively disagree with that. The other thing is they have to update us on the bus parking. They said they are still negotiating an agreement, so they should update us on that. They adjusted the student growth rate, and I'm fine with the adjustment made so far. These are all my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shibata.
Thank you, Chair. So many of my comments were already stated. I want to mention again the bus parking, the lease that they said they're in negotiation with. The reason why I want to give this repeat this is because this was something that was in the community board, was one of the only conditions on their approval, that these buses will not be parked there during school hours. So I want that to be emphasized moving forward. I do agree with Commissioner Otley Brown that we did have some comments about the safety of the walking children, how they're going to be supervised. Although and I do want to comment that the council did a great job on his on the breakdown in his letter in response to the questions of hearing. He did capture many things we're talking about. I hope that other attorneys take that lead. But that is the issue of the walking students to school community. I think that really needs to be flushed out. And while I understand that we can't have a study, as Tracy Bernicki stated, during this time because of coronavirus and hot zones, that's going to be a sticking point. With regard to the size per student, the 70 square feet, if they're going to make that argument, they need to explain why they need it. And it needs to be something in a programmatic reason as to why this particular structure school study program needs that much space per each student. And those are all my notes.
Very much. Okay, thank you. Oh, Commissioner Sheta, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I forgot to mention regarding the vault. I did design actually and build private buildings in Brooklyn with vaults, I believe on others' property. But my issue with this vault is it's very extensive in size, and they are talking about finalizing the design with DOT. Yes, I totally understand that you need to go to do DOT to get their opinion on the design, because probably their vehicles will walk on top of that. But I believe more important to discuss the design of the vault and specifically the extension of that vault is with the utility company. If this vault is to like host a utility, you need to consider the size per the minimums that are required by the utility company, which I believe is Con Ed in this case. So finalizing the design is not the issue here. It's with DOT, it's actually the utility company and what is the utility company is going to ask for as size for this vault. And then you come to us and convince us, hey, this is what they are asking for. I cannot go beyond that. But for now, the entire frontage is like provided with a vault. That's for me, that's extensive.
Right. Well, and it's not labeled as utility vaults. It's labeled as storage and an extension on basically the kitchen and things like that. It's not labeled gas room.
But right now, it looks like you're building a cellar on a city property.
Yes, exactly.
Which shouldn't be the case, yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Next item is 2019-16BZ, 25001 Northern Boulevard, Queens. This is a McDonald's.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay, the applicant, I think, has been responsive to the board's requests. However, photos of the parking area submitted on September 30th show the asphalt in need of resurfacing with a top coat. When I say resurfacing, I don't mean dig it all up, but a top coat. Just the crack repairs turns out to be really unsightly. It actually accentuates how bad the site is. And we're looking for something that's clean and spruced up to last for the next 5 years. So they should take that seriously and just put a top coat on. And I don't know if permitted or under the control of this applicant, but the side wall of the adjacent property that sits on the subject property line needs a paint job. It also has these cracks that have been filled in with white, like, I don't know, like cement fill. I don't know if this applicant controls the paint job on that side, but if it does, it would be very great if they would give it a coat of paint. And then the photo of the repaired fence, and it's described as a photo to show the fence repaired, shows broken pickets on the fence. So these are always confusing to me. How is the photo of a repaired fence that shows broken pickets a photo of a repaired fence? Sorry, just don't get it. And I thought they were going to complete the landscaping installation. They should do it. This is the perfect month to plant, that you plant in October. There are sparse areas, etc. That was supposed to have been done. So please do it. All right. Vice Chair Shanda.
I'm sorry. I had no additional comments. I was fine with the submission.
Okay. Commissioner Ollie Brown.
I agree with you about the pavement needing that top coat because it really does look shabby when you look at it now. No other comments.
Okay. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank them for fixing the fence despite of that broken picket. But I agree that the pavement, based on my second site visit, needs to be like resurfaced. Apparently the job they have done so far is not that convincing, and I believe they have to repave the entire thing or resurface the entire thing.
Yeah, top coated.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Shabeta.
Nothing further from me on this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Next item is 2017-272BZ, 10-1946 Road, Queens.
I'm going to hand this one to Shanta, to Commissioner Shanda. Sorry. You're muted, by the way.
I said, just give me a second. I wanted to open the file.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the 6th adjournment request. The application was submitted back in March of 2018. Response to comments and everything that were provided went up till November 2018. And the first hearing was scheduled on January of 2019. And after that, there was one continued hearing that was scheduled in March of 2019. And following that, we have had 5 adjournments: June 2019, September 2019, November 2019, and that was due to a change in council. And then in March 2020, prior to the mandated closing of the PCE due to COVID, that was another closing, that adjournment we had. And, all of this was around to resolve one issue, which was there is an extension of this PCE on an adjacent lot. And that extension is a minor extension, which is just a shower and a locker room, and it is not included in the zoning lot, and it is not even owned by the property owner. So the question was to resolve that, either include it as part of the zoning submission or take some other measure. Based on recent site visits, the gym is now open. And we do not grant adjournments more than this. Here, there were exceptional situations because there was a change in council, then the COVID happened. And and there was another adjournment that was also made back in June. So I'm a little bit at a loss as to what is holding out, because we had a lot of other comments, those the applicant could have addressed while they were trying to resolve the issue with the adjacent property owner to see if they could, make it part of the site. So what I did was I went through the building department permits for both the sites, the subject site and the adjacent lot, which is lot 40, just to see if there were any permits that were issued for any addition. It was very difficult to follow what permit was issued for lot 40 and how that any permit was applicable to an extension of a shower stall and a locker room. But there was, so just bear with me. According to ACRIS, Lot 40 and Lot 8, first of all, are under different ownership. Lot 40 is leased to, and the term of the lease expires in 2027. So there's a tenant that is occupying the Lot 40, which is the adjacent lot. So any possibility of including a portion of Lot 40 has to be negotiated with the owner and not the tenant. And the reason I'm saying this is as follows. According to DOB database, on February 20th, 2015, a permit was granted to install, quote, 2 toilets with non-load bearing partition and roof providing mechanical ventilation for the subject site. According to the DOB biz, there was an ECB violation that was issued on the subject lot on 4/4/2017 for work without permit to create 2 bathrooms, in bracket, 2 sinks, 2 toilets, 2 showers. So my question is, was the violation with regards to the 2 toilets that are located inside the subject building or the additional portion on lot 40? And as I said, I looked through the biz for lot 40 to see whether there were any permits issued at around the same time for similar kind of thing. It was very difficult to figure that out from the permit lists and the work that was being required. So I would like a clarification from the council as to what is holding up. Can the issue not be simplified and contained on the subject site by repurposing one of the 2 toilets, because it's not a very big gym, and the toilets that are there within the site as per plan is big enough or can be widened a little bit to accommodate a shower, and the lockers can be provided. We have seen it in many of these gyms, and this is a neighborhood gym. So and then just not bother with that little extension that's in the back and close it off. Because I think my thinking is that this addition was probably done in conversation with the tenant of lot 40 and not with the owner of lot 40. And so that's why there isn't any trace of any paperwork or permit or anything that has been done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really.
You sure it's only 2 toilets and not the whole? It looks like 2 entire toilet shower rooms. It looks like the entire locker room.
Right. So if you look at the 2 toilets that within the site, it's just toilet and sink. it doesn't have any shower, and one of them is ADA accessible. The set that is on the lot 40 portion has locker room, shower, toilet, two sinks. So I think what they were probably trying to do is either they were trying to build out this portion in lot 40, and that's why the EC violation happened, which is not clear to me. Is it for that, or was it they were trying to convert the 2 toilet, 2 sink with a shower? And the ECB was issued for that. So that is not clear, and that can be easily be determined by the applicant and the lawyer and the drawings that were submitted. So I think some of these could have been done even while the PC is not functioning, and trying to get to the depth of the history and understand that. And I'm disappointed that the applicant didn't use this time to do that research and figure it out and kind of lay out the roadmap of how to resolve this issue.
Right. Agreed. Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown?
No comments.
Okay. Commissioner Sheta?
Nothing additional from me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Shabeta?
Nothing further from me. Thank you.
All right.
Next, oh, sorry, move on.
Yeah.
2019 35BZ 235 Beaumont Street, Brooklyn. It's a single family home enlargement.
Yep. Okay. A survey was provided, so now we know what existing condition dimensions should be because they were all over the place on the prior submissions. We asked for a CCD1 confirming the assumption that the project is not a substantial improvement. We didn't receive that. Appendix G review by DOB is a requirement for these applications. And I know this is a 3rd floor addition, but I'm not really sure that it isn't also a complete redo of the facades, which would then increase the construction costs significantly. I see the filing shows a $66,000 3rd floor addition. And all I have to say about that is I want to use that contractor, because imagine that's a rebuilding of the roof and there's a lot of work involved in that addition. I'd like to know why is the room at the rear of the 3rd floor labeled quote storage when it has direct access to a rear balcony and 2 closed closets plus? Clearly it's not storage. Why is it labeled storage? It seems to be counted as floor area, so I'm not really sure why, let's say, misleadingly label it. We asked at the last hearing to justify the height of this very tall building that rises 38 feet above curb level as compared to the original 30 feet. Drawing page 10 shows the tallest of the adjoining properties at 34 foot 10 inches above curb. I don't find any other information to support the height. The rendering shows the 3rd floor outcropping to be rather odd, frankly. I'm hoping the rendering doesn't accurately represent the roof line, and that the transition from the 2nd floor roof to this addition is more subtle and gradual. It actually, in the rendering, makes it look like a house flew around and in a tornado and landed on the top of this house, as opposed to actually an elegant palazzo design depicted in the elevations. Page 4 of the zoning diagrams has legends that I don't understand. The first wide hatch is described as quote existing area, and nothing in the plans is hatched that way. The next is labeled as increased area, which represents the majority of the plans. The next is crawl space, which is at the perimeter of the 2nd floor. And the last is proposed area at the 3rd floor. This is supposed to be an existing building, so I don't understand why no area is hatched as existing. And why is the area called crawl space deducted from floor area at the 2nd floor? So I used to understand the project. Now I don't understand the project based on these drawings. Where are the totals for existing walls to remain? There's sort of this tabulation chart. of existing walls to remain, but then there's no total and no comparison to walls to be removed. So we don't know what the percentage is. Similarly, the legend on the typical floor plans shows the most commonly used hatching as representing 20% increased area. So I don't understand again what that is. So the legends have to be corrected to represent actual conditions, or the project has to be re-explained to us because we were told this is an existing building that's not going to be disturbed other than the third floor addition. Those are my comments. Vice Chair Shando?
Thank you. My main concern with this project is the height of the attic, and the proposed attic ceiling height is currently shown at, oh, I'm sorry, just give me a second. Why am I not able to find the section? Is 10 foot. I think the proposed ceiling height can be reduced to 9 feet, including the structural beam, by having the roof spring off at 5 foot height along the front and the rear, and 5 foot or 6 foot, I'm open to that discussion, along the side, and flatten it out to carry the mansard roof appearance, and that would bring the height down much more, and would be more in line with the neighborhood context. And I agree with you with the room that is shown as a storage. If it is going to be storage, we should have a note clearly saying that not for living, not for sleeping purposes.
That's just a word. Why does it look like a bedroom?
I agree with you. I mean, it looks like a bedroom, breathes like a bedroom.
Must be a bedroom.
Not be a bedroom. But so if it is and you're counting it in the floor area, then show it. Don't then give us an opportunity to question it.
Mm. Okay. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown.
They addressed my question. They clarified that they were not using the easement, the 4 foot easement in the back, to generate floor area or lot area. So I'm satisfied.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I agree that the height is kind of aggressive a little bit, and I don't have any further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shivetta.
My comments are stated. I have nothing further.
Okay. Okay. So you agree with the others. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Next item is number 28, 2019-201BZ, 285 Grand Street, Manhattan. This is a Willie B. CrossFit gym.
Right. And again, I give this to Vice Chair Shanda.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we received a submission on September, and at the last hearing, really the outstanding issue was the fire department comments. Fire department had asked that the applicant file a fire alarm plan. Since the approved plan did not match that has been done, and FDNY has accepted it. We did receive a recent no objection letter, and the revised plan has been corrected to indicate the changes that match with the approved fire alarm plan. And the certification also has been provided, and clarification has been provided, regarding the sound limiter. And the sound system is attached to a limiter per prior BSA approval. And the specs of the limiter was also provided. My only question is, what is the limiter set to? Other than that, I was fine with the application.
And my notes say that there should have been additional information about the lifting platforms.
I thought they responded to it at the public hearing. Maybe I overlooked that.
Okay. So they said that the road boxes are used during weightlifting. And I asked for more information on the road boxes, so maybe they could provide that.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown,
No comments.
Commissioner Sheta,
Thank you, Chair. After receiving the LNO from FDNY, I'm okay with the project. I have no additional comments.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Nothing additional from me, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this concludes the public review session for 10 a.m. We will now commence with the public hearing for October 20th, 2020, 10 a.m. Once again, the first item is a new case, 2020-61BZ, 342-346, East 104th Street, Manhattan, East Harlem Scholars Academy Charter School. So this is Lobel's office.
Right.
Good morning. I think we're still waiting for a few.
Because we have a few names in the room, so please let us, who are we waiting for?
Would that be in the Chelsea, Andrew?
Oh, you have to turn off your video. Oh, terrible echoes. Whoever has YouTube on, turn it off. Okay, and you want to?
Min should be let in. Let me see. Yeah, that's all from our end.
Sorry, I didn't hear, everything you said was echoing.
Sorry, I think everyone should be in. I'm just looking at the attendees list.
Okay.
If that's the waiting room. Let me just double check of who's here. Okay, we have Enya, Lenara, Andrea, Chelsea, Amber. Is Min not here?
Please turn off your yeah, Min just joined. Min
Okay, perfect. I think we have everyone.
Everyone turn off their YouTube videos, and then we're going to ask you to unmute yourselves so that we can swear you in on the team.
Ready? Miss Werner, could you unmute? Miss Davidson, unmute. Miss Anderson,
Chelsea and Alfonso.
yeah. Mr. Guarini, unmute. Is everybody then? Is that it, Fan?
Yes.
Okay, good. So everybody raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions? Mr. Williams, unmute.
Do.
All right, everybody say aye.
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 Thank you. Miss Paton, proceed.
I'm actually going to defer to Mr. Lobel.
Okay, sorry.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Richard Lobel from Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant, East Harlem Tutorial Program. Chair, we were at the, we were privy to the executive session, so we got all the board's comments, and the applicant team is prepared to answer everything in detail. I would start by profusely thanking the board and particularly staff for its scheduling of this application. As was alluded to by Commissioner Otley Brown, this is an organization which essentially, as its students and as a student body, has many underprivileged and children without access to resources that would be available to other schools. And so timing is an issue for us and cost is an issue for us. And so we're thankful for the board because we have an aggressive program and we are seeking to do important work, as will be detailed by Lenara and Andrea from the program. I would merely start by saying that there are certain design elements which were discussed by the chair and by the board, and certain plan revisions that are necessary, which have already been done. There were sets, there was, I think, a set which may have been, there may have been an attempted filing which was not filed. So we apologize for that. Obviously, this was done in great haste, but we do know that we are prepared to answer all the board's questions and to specifically discuss the fact that the decision to apply for a variance here was made in a very serious way. The school would not be here before the board if an as-of-right building was an option. And so with that, I think I would defer to Lenara and Andrea to talk a little bit about the background of the school and maybe give the board a little bit of a foundation for these waivers, and then to defer to Stephen Chu and Min Tran, who can discuss the architectural aspects of the building that the program plays into those aspects and why the waivers are sought.
Okay, and before each person speaks, can you identify yourself and your affiliation, your role in this project?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Lenara Davidson Greenidge, and I am the Chief Development Officer and External Affairs Officer for East Harlem Tutorial Program. And I will provide a bit of background of who we are. So we were founded over 63 years ago in a living room of our co-founder, who was really passionate and interested in ensuring that our young people in East Harlem were excited about reading. From there, we quickly created an after-school program, and we're serving East Harlem students within our after-school programs for the last few decades before opening up our first school in 2011 under our new leadership, Jeffrey Ginsburg, where we now have 2 elementary, 2 middle, and a high school, East Harlem Scholars Academies, respectively. In addition to that, we have a teaching residency program where we are training the next generation of educators to teach within East Harlem. And of course, within our after-school program, the program that we highlight quite the most as we ensure that our young people are prepared to get to and through college is our College Access Program. We highlight that one heavily because, as you know, East Harlem is merely just a few blocks away from the Upper East Side. And yet the stats show that our college graduation rates and our high school graduation rates are, there's a stark difference in what actually exists here, right? And so, and instead, for the past 5 years within our program, 96% of our students have gone on to 2 or 4 year colleges. And so with the addition of this high school, which is currently co-located on 96th Street at a public institution, we are looking to ensure that we continue to serve even more young people, 25% by 2025, as a way in which to be part of the solution in fixing some of the disparities that exist within our communities. All of our work is done within a framework of institutional racism, acknowledging that institutional racism and other isms within our country further impact the barriers and that our young people are able to have access to quality education. And that's just not with the actual programs that we provide, right? But the buildings as well that our young people are able to be educated in. And so with this new high school, a high school that will be one of the first high schools built from scratch within decades within East Harlem, we are hoping to enable young people within the East Harlem community the same resources and access to quality high-end education that anyone would expect for their children and for their young people. We were able, and in addition to the programs that we serve for our young people, because we have been within the community for so long, we are a community partner for other issues that impact our young people as well, right? We tend to compartmentalize policy issues, but our young people don't actually experience policy issues in a compartmentalized way. And so when COVID-19 hit in a real way, we closed our doors on March 16th, like most institutions, and we're able to provide a completely virtual experience for our young people. But in addition to being able to provide our high-end quality education for our young people, we were able to ensure that over 20,000 families received grab-and-go breakfasts and lunches, not just the families that we serve within our direct programs, but East Harlem writ large. We ensured to answer some of the technological gaps that happen within communities like we serve, and have given out over 1,000 devices so that our young people can actually engage within the programs that we are serving. And for those families that were in need for one-time payments for rent, the lights were turned off because jobs were lost. We provided over 195 grants to those families to ensure that those payments could be met and continue to provide services there. And so again, this is just an example of the deep roots that we have within East Harlem, and our desire to continue to be part of solutions to ensure that we are enabling our young people to realize their best possible selves. Thank you very much. And from there, I will pass it over to Ms. Wenner.
Thanks, Lenara. Thank you to the board for expediting our request and for reviewing our plans so carefully, and we'll try to address as much of the comments that came up as possible. To start with, Chair, you had a question about the provisional charter and what does it mean?
Sorry, can you start off with?
Oh, sorry, who I am, yes. Sure. So my name is Andrea Wenner. I am a consultant on special projects. I was a 7-year full-time staff member at EHTP, initially in the capacity of Managing Director of Development, and then in the capacity of Managing Director of Special Projects. And now I'm a consultant on special projects, so leading this separate. So with respect to the provisional charter, we have a provisional charter through December because SUNY, which is our authorizer, wanted to align the review of Scholars and Scholars 2 on the same cycle, rather than reviewing one in June and the other one in December. They wanted to align them on the same cycle. So that's why it's in December, because that's when they will align. It's provisional because they're always provisional, because they can't exist indefinitely. So SUNY, when it does its review, gives a charter for a period of time. Usually it's 3 or 5 years. In the past, we've always gotten 5 years. This one was shorter just so that they could align it to the other school. And so the next charter that we get will also be a provisional charter, probably for 5 years, because that's part of their sort of reauthorization, so that they can ensure that we're delivering on the quality that we commit to. So.
Just a question about that. How do you know that you'll always be re-upped for another charter?
Candidly, you don't. No charter school does, right? Like they could, in theory, revoke it. If you're not performing. We have always had very positive and supportive reviews from SUNY. And I think generally speaking, like they're not, even if you had a period where you hadn't performed as well, if you've had 5 prior periods where you performed great, they're not just going to say, oh, sorry, one bad period, you're done, right? They're going to give you a chance to remedy whatever it is that they were concerned about. But no charter does know that they couldn't in any, instance revoke that. With respect to the DCAS restrictions, so we are in process with DCAS. They are very supportive, but we also don't think it's absolutely critical that we get that deed restriction modified. There is recreational use on those lots, right? One is outdoor space as proposed, and the other one has the black box theater and and some other programming that arguably would be considered recreational uses. That said, like we're pursuing it. It is a new process for them, so it will take a long time. Is basically what they've said to us. But they're excited that we're doing it because they think we can be an example of how this process should move along because it is not controversial. Mm-hmm. So, and we have the support of the councilwoman and the community board as well on that. Rich, should I hand it over? Should I talk about the programmatic sort of questions now, or let Stephen go through some of these other comments and we go in order?
With the board's permission, I think that Stephen would address some of the background, more formulaic questions with regards to the dry flood proofing and those details and material details. And then maybe Andrea, if Stephen started talking about some of the architectural choices that were made, and if you wanted to, interject with some of the program decisions behind that, I think that would work.
Okay. My name is Stephen Chu. I'm a design principal at Ennead Architects. And I think some of the questions, thank you for your time. And I want to go through some of your comments. Do you think it makes sense to pull up plans? Is that helpful?
if you do a screen share and if you want to, you may. We all have access to the
Okay.
plan while you're talking.
Okay, so why don't I address some of the issues that don't need the plans yet? I think one of your questions that had to do with the finish of the exterior, and I wanted to clarify what the comment was about cement plaster.
Okay, no, but actually before you do that, because
Okay.
we need to satisfy my, maybe it's morbid curiosity because it's late, but why was the retention of the church not considered in the project?
Reusing the existing structure would have actually been very difficult due to the requirements of the program in the school in terms of each class floor to floor. It would have required a lot of demolition of that existing structure and rebuilding it in order to make it feasible, to the point where it seemed not really a good direction to go with the desired building mass and breakdown section.
Okay, even though you had full lot coverage and very high ceilings already with the church.
Yeah, one big volume was in the existing structure, but the masonry walls really don't have the type of exterior construction needed. They would really have been surgical work. I understand your point, and I've done projects like that, like the Public Theater down in Lafayette, 425, which is an existing big masonry structure. But that project specifically, the typology worked really well with the building, even though it was tremendously expensive to go there and change it. In this case, the program desired didn't really fit that existing box.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so should I go to the cement plaster issue?
As you like. Just
Okay. All right. So just to clarify, what we have on the building construction for finish on the rear, which is above the 4th floor, essentially above that terrace level, is a plaster applied to an exterior sheathing with mineral wool on the inside. It's a completely non-combustible assembly. It is not the insulated IFIS foam that is typically used right behind the stucco or the thin plaster finish. So we have a non-combustible exterior assembly.
So what's the actual finish material and how thick is it?
The actual finish is applied onto the sheathing. I think it's probably around 3/8 inch thick, and it's applied in layers, and it has a certain flexibility, so it has minimal cracking. There is another construction on the side walls where we have the masonry block wall construction on the east and west sides, especially if you look at the lot line. That lot line construction is insulated block with 3-coat plaster, traditional 3-coat plaster applied directly onto it.
But so this material onto which the stucco is applied, what's that material?
It's like a dense glass gold. So exterior sheathing.
Okay, so it's just, so what prevents it from, it's only 3/8 thick.
It's applied onto the sheathing, and they actually have a sort of a meshy material, and it's applied in coats.
Okay.
It's a product that has a little bit of movement so that it's not as rigid as your straight 3-coat plaster approach. One of the reasons why that was chosen on this facade is because the load-bearing weight of the CMU construction on that facade would have incurred more cost and also additional dimension to the building section.
Can you submit, what's the name of the material? Is there a product name for this composite that you're making, this assembly?
We can provide you with the spec on it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing I want to bring up is that the comments about the corner lot and providing a landscape plan, which we do have a landscape corner plaza design that we will provide you. It will have landscape backdrop up against the exposed existing neighboring lot wall where they had the light well previously. And we do have an ADA ramp that runs along that, in addition to the steps that go up to the front door. The reason we have the stairs because we're doing the flood-proof construction up to that DFE line. So we have to provide lobby entry above that elevation. I will also add that the reason why we depressed the gym, which was also questioned, was because we're trying to minimize the ask for the volumetric increase from the 23 feet up. I can actually just quickly show, I'm sorry.
Right, so first you come into the building and you go up steps.
Yes, correct.
We couldn't tell from the drawings that were submitted to us because we had really no information about that entry, right? So you cut off the entry condition there.
Yes, apologies for that. We will provide you with the full landscape plan and entry ground floor condition, which would show you what happens here on this entry court.
So that drawing is so teeny weeny, you can't find it. You can't figure out anything.
Yeah, we will give you a better plan. Our apologies.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess my question is, why would you want to have people, especially the disabled or those who still might use stairs, but not a ramp? Because I don't know if you've ever used crutches, but ramps are a disaster for crutches. So you're going up a flight of stairs and then you have to go down a flight of stairs again to go into the gym space. So my question is, would you prefer to be all on one level because the difference in elevation isn't significant?
So it's a very good question, and it requires a bit of an explanation because there are many options looked at this. So if you look at the plan, you rise up a stoop, which you're right, we're cutting off, but there's stairs and a ramp that bring you up to this level. I also just wanted to add that a decision to make the building more compact and not stretch along this corner lot. We've studied many versions of this scheme to try to find out the best scheme for their program and to achieve the desired adjacencies of program as well. The corner lot is very narrow and is expensive to build out to get minimum gain in terms of program. The other thing I will point out is that any program that might be appropriate, I think a suggestion was made about administration, which is the logical piece in the big picture to pull out. In our case, for the desire of the client and an integration of administration, instructors, and students, the real model we're following in the design direction of high schools is to integrate those two programs and get the presence of those instructors and admin in the mix of the classrooms, which creates a better dialogue and a better presence and supervision on top of that. So by just putting them to the side essentially is pulling that energy completely out of the mix, which we want to create this great mixing energy of program space, coupled with the fact that it is a premium, a substantial premium in cost. That point being made, I do want to revisit the elevation issue. So you come up the stoop, you arrive at a flood-proof high elevation, which we're required to provide. And then the rest of the circulation in this zone is at that higher elevation. It is actually just the gym that drops down to a lower elevation. And the reason for doing that, your question is, would we prefer to have the gym at the same lobby level? That would be a better circulation diagram for us. However, let me just pull you to the section. Excuse me. Let me just get down.
Because you also have a ramp running all along that back corridor. So you've got all of these level
up and down, correct, which basically bring you down to the locker rooms and then transition right into the gym at the lower level. So, sorry, can you see my section on the screen right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so the lobby level, as you can see in the diagram here, we're cut through the gym. The lobby level is up at the higher dashed line. We drop down because we're trying to minimize this height restriction asked. The other thing is because that existing structure has some excavated basement, we would actually be paying more money to backfill it in and ask you all for more ask on the height. Because this is a big sandwich overall in section, anything we do in raising here raises up here as well. So we're trying to, again, we're trying to ask as little as possible from you all here in terms of variance. But that really explains the reason for this. And also I wanted to show you this section because apologies for the incorrect dimension that you very quickly caught on those diagrams. But this one here, if you look at this section as the proposed building, this gives you some overall dimensions for classroom and corridor up in the standard stacked double loaded corridor of the overall. And what it's telling us is that the rear yard setback here is provided with an additional bit. Could we have pulled this out to here? Yes, we could have, but again, we're not asked, we felt that this met our needs. And so that's the reason this building section came out the way it is. I want to just compare those numbers to this, which is the as of right section. And you'll see the dimensions were correct on this one. These are 28 plus feet with a 10-foot corridor. And this is showing the 25 and change with an 8-foot corridor. The corridor as well, the classroom are equal important to us in the dimensions because the corridor, they are high school students, they're getting big. They have lockers in there as well and along one whole side. And so that means that we're pinched in terms of movement between classes.
So what's the actual front to back dimension of the building, since we don't have any drawings that show
that full dimension? You're right. You're right about that. I apologize for this. There's no excuse for that. And you're right. We need to give you some more cohesive dimensions. What I would say is this plan here, this is the plan that you would find that. So basically, this is the as of right. Let me go back to the proposed here. The lot is 100 feet and 11 inches depth. But apologies again. Let me just get you to a plan there. Okay. So this 68'8", I believe that says, is from the front to the back of the building, and lot being 100'11". So as you did the math quickly, that gives you that 30 feet and change that you saw in that building section, as compared to the as of right section, where the building essentially is, let me see if I can find 62.2 here.
All right, so what we're talking about is if you make the correction to the drawings, the proposed is 68 and change, and the as of right is 62.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the difference for the sectional change is in the as of right section, which I'll just point out again quickly. Because in the as of right, we did respect the setback. Of course, we would bring it all the way to the line of the 30 foot and try to gain as much as we can.
Okay, so,
Okay.
you know, again, not to give you a hard time, but
Yeah,
the is that the drawings are so inaccurate that were submitted to us. So the argument that was made that we need more depth
it was not made. Yes, understood.
drawings.
Yes, I completely agree with you.
So now it's in the record, right?
Yeah.
And we can't ignore our record. That's what we have. So you're going to need to do some extra special efforts to show us what was corrected and why those room dimensions never could have been the room dimensions that are shown on the proposed that you submitted before. So in other words, just to give an example, if the argument is that a classroom had to be a minimum dimension, then the as of right would have shown, if you had dimensioned the classrooms, the as of right would have shown under the minimum dimensions. And you would show that, look, and it totals, you'll give a string dimensions so that we can really see, and the totals, we can really see how it all adds up to the depth of your building. And say that with a 62-foot deep building, the classrooms are only X deep, the corridor only Y deep, and that doesn't fulfill the standard requirements for a classroom for X many students, okay? And then go to the proposed and show on the proposed that with 68 feet deep, I get classrooms of A deep and corridor of B depth, and that comports with minimum standards and comma, apologies for the last set in which there was a typographical error or something like that.
Okay, can I just make another point that I think that the actual reason for it isn't so much that you need to have that a certain desired depth, but that the entire volume of the building changes because you can't fit the same number of classrooms on that floor plan. They basically, we're trying to hold a minimum standard of a classroom size, which we would impose on either scheme. What has happened in this as of right scheme is because, of course, the classrooms are priority in the school. We've got to get the classrooms in to fit all the students in there. What happens is that you start to squeeze those classrooms out of those floor plates from the proposed, and they occupy another floor, and therefore knock out any of the other desired program that was additional, such as college access, a dedicated cafeteria. And that's why in this proposed, or I'm sorry, the as of right section here, you see that the classroom chunk becomes a solid, essentially solid 4 stories. And because of our height limitation as of right, everything gets compressed all the way down the line. And those extra program pieces that are so contingent in this program, the desired by HTP, get squeezed out of the building.
So, but aren't there minimum dimensions for these ideal classroom sizes? So you're saying you're meeting the minimum dimensions even in the as of right?
What we're saying is that the classroom sizes we had to reconfigure them in dimensions because the plans were different. And what resulted is that we fit less classrooms.
Okay.
Yeah, the proportions changed, and then we lose a classroom off the floor, essentially.
Go ahead, Commissioner. Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of dovetails with my question about the different references you were using for classroom size.
Right.
So if you could tie that in to why you're using one reference over another, and that would help your argument, because we've seen schools where they literally just go by the 2014 building code, 20 square foot per student, and have a size like we want 25 kids, 25 times 20, the rooms are 500 square feet.
Right.
And if you were to go by that, you would be able to provide some sort of a setback, but you're not. So you need to kind of tie your argument into your classroom standards that you are using.
Is that something that maybe, Chelsea, if you're online, could you speak to this standard?
I can speak to that. Hi, I'm Chelsea Anderson, about the work owners rep for EHTP. So EHTP's classrooms, and they're looking to have an enrollment of 600 with the possibility of expanding to 650. So each of the classrooms was designed so that it could hold up to 30 students so that there's flexibility within the plan, right? So if we go with the DOB precedent of having 20 square feet per occupant within the classroom, and in some cases, EHTP also has two teachers per classroom. So we're looking at an occupancy of 34. At 32. So at 32 times 20, we're looking at a minimum classroom size of 640. For the most part, we are sitting in classroom sizes of about 650 across the proposed building.
That's right.
With the exception of the NCAP and kind of more specialized classrooms being science, art, and music, which have much greater furniture requirements. And then also to deal with the layout of the building in general, having the stair at the easternmost side of the building does only allow for a small area to enter into the classroom. So there is a classroom that's slightly larger than the others because of the layout.
But you had I think this is what Commissioner Otley Brown was getting at. There were other standards that were provided to us, like School Construction Authority has a standard. So then why aren't you using that one? Like, we don't know.
Instructional footprint for high school had a standard, and some of your classrooms seemed like they were large enough to accommodate even 38 students. So you were well over the 600 square feet that you were kind of shooting for.
Yeah. we'll provide information in regards to which code will be taking precedent. I think we'll be focused on the DOB requirement and making sure that we're meeting the required occupancy for 34, and then also specifically label those classrooms which would be used for science, which will have a much larger furniture requirement. So even on, I think it's
yeah, I saw that you were using a different standard for the science, and that seemed to be the standard that was picking up also the instructional footprint for high school numbers. And I understood that you needed more room in the science classrooms, and you had the prep room and the wet room and the dry room. That I understood. I was really aiming my question more at the standard classrooms that seemed to be in the setback, in the front setback, basically.
Right.
Yeah, for the ones that are at the northernmost portion of the plan. Yeah, we'll be sure that our next submission clarifies the code that we're taking into consideration.
And to the extent that there are other guidelines, that, for instance, to Commissioner Ollie Brown's point earlier in the review session, talking about schools that are made available to kids who don't have the opportunity to go to expensive private schools, it's not to say that your classrooms can't be bigger for pedagogical reasons that you explain.
Right.
Well, and I made reference to that fantastic music school where there's a pedagogy that needs more space, but you need to justify the need. We're not saying the DOT maximum is your only choice. We're saying justify it pedagogically, okay,
Right.
pragmatically.
Yes, and use of classroom, desire for types of different small group configurations, all those things have been looked at for these rooms, so we can provide that information to you.
Okay. Commissioner Sheta has his hand up, and if it's in line with this discussion as opposed to structural discussions, just to stay on the program stuff for now, but go ahead.
Okay.
It's structural, but it's related to that kind of discussion we're going through.
Okay.
I'm talking about the building height. I see that the floor to floor height is about 13 feet 3 inches on the section.
Yes.
What my question is, what is the clear floor to floor? I mean, from the bottom of the beam, if there are any beams that's going to be projecting inside the classroom, what is the height from the bottom of the beam to the floor for the typical floor? And what kind of beam you're accounting for? Are you accounting for kind of a 3 feet deep girders here?
So no, it's steel construction, and at the moment with this 13-foot 3-dimension, again, just to give you the story here, we would desire a higher floor to floor, but we're trying to, again, not ask for too much height variance. But this height is actually lower than the floor to floor that we have in the previous EHTP building. And it's accommodating ductwork passing under steel. At this point, we've achieved a 9'6" ceiling height in the classroom. The desire was 10 initially.
Okay, so you're saying that you're governed by the space required for the ductwork, not the structural requirements for the supporting beam. Am I correct?
It's both. They have to coordinate with each other. The two combined give you the floor construction.
It can be both, based on the spans. Looking at the plan view, based on the spans, I don't think the supporting beam is gonna need to be more than 2 feet. But if you're looking at almost 10 feet, that means that you have almost 3 feet for the ductwork, meaning that the ductwork is governing the requirements for the floor to floor height.
Yes, ductwork passing under steel. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you please respond to that for the next submission?
Do you need would you like a more detailed section? We can give you that.
No, you don't have to. Just justification for the floor to floor height.
The explanation. Understood. Okay.
Thank you.
I would also just take that opportunity, since we raised structure, to just explain that we actually did do a lot of exploration for, again, the reason why this height is being asked for. As I mentioned before, we've depressed the gym in order to minimize the height penetration vertically. I also will point out that we looked at the structure many times and came up with a solution where, as you can see, this is a long span here, and you don't see a lot of structural depth. The reason is we structured the whole building so that these 2 floors of classroom, there's a truss running in it east-west. And that truss, which is our long span, is actually supporting this midpoint. So we ended up with just shallow beams framing over this big long span, so that it's a whole combined structural solution. That meant our truss wasn't sitting in useless poche space, but actually occupying 2 floors of program, therefore compressing the whole building once again to make it less impact in the vertical ask.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's the only way this could have been achieved. Otherwise, you would have seen a huge truss running this way and even more height above.
Right.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah, sorry.
We see so many schools, and they always make an argument about why they need to have so much height. And they
Well, there's a great new idea they should follow.
Yeah, so you know what? For informational purposes only, can you share your little structural detail of that?
Yeah, sure. We'd be happy to.
Great.
We'd be happy to. It does mean that there will be some minimal cross bracing here, as you know, a truss will need, right? And it bears on columns at the long span points here and here, but you basically long span the whole gym in a way that doesn't take up volume.
Have you fought with your structural engineer or not yet?
It's been a lot of back and forth. I also want to point out the comment about the boxes on the terrace, which were a confusion.
Wait a second before you go to the boxes. So we were talking about justifying the shapes of the rooms and putting the dimensions in so we can better follow along. Yes. One of my questions was, and again, we're always looking at, because it's our charge, the minimum variance necessary, right?
Yes.
Explain to us how you're keeping the height down. But in terms of the program, what if we were only to give you the front yard waiver, the front yard setback and the rear yard waiver? What if those were the only 2 waivers? How would that affect program?
Okay, so I anticipated you asking that question.
Stephen, can I just interject for one quick question?
Please.
One quick minute. This is Andrea. Sorry. Just on the pedagogy question and the size of the rooms. Our high school is modeled around a project-based learning program, and so that does require a lot more space because kids are meeting in small groups and working together on hands-on learning projects, and so it's much different use of the classroom space than if you just have sort of like a teacher standing in front of the room and desks lined up. And so we really wanted that size to be able to execute on that program, and also so that then, you know, if we want more of a lecture size classroom, we can set it up in that way and have some flexibility on how classroom spaces are used.
Can you perhaps, for example, you have an existing school situation, right? Can you give us maybe a photograph of a classroom set up like that or in process?
Sure.
Or maybe even Mr. Chu can provide a drawing that shows the difference between the layout of a classroom, project based, is one that is just your standard desks in a row.
Right.
Yeah, part of it is, you can imagine, if you have 3 or 4 different groups meeting in one space, if they're all right on top of each other, then you can't keep track of the conversation that's happening. So they need room to sort of spread out and be able to have small conversations.
Right. And
but we can do that for sure.
To the 2 references that you use and say, for instance, using DOB, this is what the layout look like, and therefore we can't have these small group breakout session spaces.
Right.
But if we use the student guide and it's 700 square feet, look at the extra space where we can move our chairs or whatever and have these breakout areas.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, will do.
Right.
Sorry, Stephen, go ahead. with
No,
the-
that's
the
fine.
Original
That's
question.
that's important. So this is in fact a skylight. It's not a mechanical equipment bulkhead. It is a skylight that is required by code. And I will just say that we are currently asking for permission from Department of the State to waive that, in which case the DOB, if the DOS says okay, the DOB will waive that requirement for us on this building, which would mean there wouldn't be these skylight monitors. It was a requirement for amount of daylight into that space.
Really? Huh.
Yes, it
Okay.
was, and honestly, it was for us cumbersome and difficult as well, because it blocked view, it blocked use of terrace, and is costly as well. So we're hoping that that does get waived, but its location, their size is precisely calculated for the amount of sun or exposure on the ground floor of the gym. It's highly calculated. And the reason it's pushed up against the facade is also because it wants to reach an area of the plan near the center.
Wow. It sounds like an antique requirement. Like
it's actually a newer requirement.
Yeah, oh, really? Weird.
Yes. Well, as we all know, that the requirements are getting more stringent. So that's what that item is there.
Okay.
Okay. Let me just look at my list and see what else.
But so wait a second. You were going to go to the issue of what would happen if you, and you don't need to answer this now, but we need to see a drawing of what would happen if you only had front and rear setback waivers. Program would be left out from the project, but you don't need to necessarily know the answer unless you sat there with a napkin while we were doing the review session.
I think your question is essentially, just so I understand it, if I'm looking at our diagram here, the front setback is this ask here, the rear is the height here, then what remains essentially, I believe, is then this non-compliance of the foot, right?
Well, so where do you hit? Okay, so at that's your
86 is the heavy dash, and then this is the extra foot that we're asking. Yes, this is, and again, I'll point out the reason why we hatched all of these pieces is because we wanted to be respectful for the fact that these sit on a non-compliant roof, and that's why we hatched it all.
Right.
But yeah, it's not that these aren't allowed on the roof for a certain percentage. Again, it's a percentage allowable of the area of the rooftop.
Right.
And this does meet that. And then one of the reasons that brings us to the screen discussion is that there are a couple reasons that the screen isn't there. And I'll explain also the acoustic measure, since that's also related to this. We have an acoustician who did the DB study code and found that the units are quiet units that are extra package units that provide acoustic insulation. So they don't require an acoustical screen. The visual screen, however, does, and I'll just be straight, there are a couple reasons. One is cost, and the other is that when you build the acoustic screen, you actually end up fencing a larger area, which increases the area considered as the mechanical area, which then puts us in a non-compliant percentage of rooftop. So there's a few other issues that are involved with that discussion.
Okay, but so if we just go back to
the
good old days of when mechanical spaces and mechanical equipment were part of the design of a building.
Yes.
Now, no architect in his right mind would be caught dead just throwing a bunch of junk on the roof, right? They would have put it in some sort of beautiful object, and then people take photographs of the object. Their friends who live in Iowa, right?
Yeah, right.
So why can't you do some version of that here, but it's just not as costly? I mean, we are in a neighborhood. You want to be able to look up the building with pride and not see, this is a very tall thing. It's 23 feet above the roof, right?
Yeah, this is the water tanks, which aren't the whole extent of rooftop equipment, which I can just show you here on this roof plan. Okay, so basically these are two water tanks. This is the bulkhead, and these are, I know, I'm sorry, it's hard to see this, but these are the equipment layout. We do set back all the equipment at least more than 15 feet from the north face of the building, which do help sight lines. But in terms of screening this, it really is the 2 points I made. If we do a screen, it will incur costs to the client. In terms of aesthetics, I would never argue with you on that point. But the truth is that this is an ambitious project. We think it's a beautiful project, and priorities of funding have gone really more to the spaces where the kids need.
So one thing I'm going to throw out there, since
Okay.
you see, but so do we see so many
Yeah.
private schools, one of the things they use the roof for is greenhouses
Yeah.
and programs to teach kids about planting,
Yeah.
which ends up creating these trellises, which I don't
Mhm.
think are major costs. What if you did something like that?
A different solution to, as opposed to enclosing it, you mean?
Yeah,
Give it something as a top.
Yeah, exactly. So in other words, in front of these things from the street, you might instead see a trellis structure that's on the roof, and maybe the kids are allowed up there for the science classes and stuff like that. That's something to talk about with the school faculty.
Yeah, so let us convene on our end and talk to the client about this idea. I think that just to be clear, I don't think we would ever allow occupancy on the roof. There's not enough area to be around mechanical equipment. But from the aesthetic perspective, your question, is there some solution that's more cost effective that can still improve the aesthetic? Yes, understood. And the reason that I just want to point out this 1 foot ask here, because it's really just about, if we don't consider the setback issue, this 1 foot non-compliance is that, in the design, once again, we're back to the structure and mechanical. We don't want a lot of ducts running around on the rooftop. And so we internalize them. And that's why this is such a deep poche, is because all the mechanical units, air handlers, are running around like spaghetti to get to where they need to service the building below. And the steel and the mechanical units, let's just put it this way, I did not feel comfortable promising that we would make that, because I think it's really tight. And I didn't want it to impact the height of all the classroom floor at the top.
Right.
So that's my honest response to that.
Your as of right, though, is a 5-story building. That's what's confusing. I don't get that, right? Your as of right is 5-story.
Okay, so yeah, let me just go back to that point. The as of right, see, let's look here, has a mechanical top floor in this case. And let me explain this solution. In this scenario, again, we have to prioritize the classrooms. That's really the heart of the school. Not diminishing the importance of the college access and the dedicated cafeteria, but first you got to have the classroom. So that's why this is the way it is. The reason why this is mechanical, once again, is because the footprint of the roof is so small now, it's reduced. We literally could not fit it in the code allowable rooftop coverage of the roof allowable. And therefore, as opposed to just throwing a bunch of stuff up there, and then we wouldn't meet the height requirement either. And so what this decision was to internalize the mechanical unit and comply with this scheme.
I see.
And that pushes everything down from there. And that's why we end up with the compressed. And then, we don't, obviously, as of right, we're not asking for the increase this direction in this scheme.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Shanda has her hand up. Go ahead.
Okay.
Actually, Mr. Chu just answered my question with regards to the 11-foot deep or 10-foot deep, the ceiling depth on the proposed and why that differs from the as of right. That was my question.
Okay, and I will also point out that we did, again, many studies on this. We looked at schemes where the gym was even lower to avoid this, and also to allow this whole thing to drop. And we've done all kinds of studies. The water table is literally just a couple feet below the bottom of our pile caps. It's within, I think, guys, I think it was like within, I got a sketch right here. I can tell you right now, it is about 8 feet below right below the finished floor of the gym. So if we were to do that, it would be putting a space highly at risk of water infiltration, hydrostatic pressure, et cetera, and excavation is even more compounded.
Okay.
Okay.
More.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you want me to address the college access? I think that was the next
Yeah,
question on the list. So, you're absolutely right. Like that, it's a little bit mislabeled. We labeled it that because it's such a prominent part of our program and such a feature of our program. But it's absolutely like a study area, library area, congregating area for students, et cetera. It's not exclusively just for college access. So that is such an important part. I think broadly speaking, I just want to sort of make 2 points on college access and also the administrative spaces and why we didn't use that First Avenue space. So one is programmatic, right, which I'll explain in a minute, and then 2 is just budget and what Stephen talked to before, where it's a narrow portion, and to get not a lot of use out of that space but have to build it was prohibitively expensive, and it's a project. This is a project that we are funding entirely with philanthropic donations and the resources of the school itself based on sort of facilities funding and financing that will be required. So we're getting no public money for this at all. And so we have a very tight budget. We don't have the luxury of having lots of extra money to be able to spend, unfortunately. So that dictated a lot of the programmatic and design decisions that we had to make. And as Mr. LaBelle pointed out in the very beginning, like we would have loved to have been able to build everything that we wanted as of right and not have to ask for any of these variances, but we couldn't dig, a basement in order to put the roof down into the basement because we wouldn't have been able to afford the building. We would have been left with a gym in the basement and that was about it. So we really looked very hard at that and appreciate your understanding of that. From a programmatic perspective, college access is like a focal point of what we're doing. And so we needed it to be like front and center in the building. It's what we're driving towards, as Lenara pointed out at the very beginning. Like we're all about increasing the college graduation rate in East Harlem. And so that is really a core component of our program. We want students to see that happening. We want them to see the literature up on the walls in that space and really get energized about the idea that they're going to go to college and they're going to be successful in college. And so that's why we wanted that to be in such a center portion of the building. And it's also going to be used throughout the day for studying, for group work to be happening, for teachers to be meeting with students and all of that. And so we didn't want that sort of like stuck in some sort of side alley, even if we could afford it. Similarly, as Stephen pointed out before, with respect to the admin, we want our students and our faculty to be, interacting throughout the day. We want that both because of the community it creates and sort of the accessibility that it allows for, but also because we want some supervision in those spaces. And so that's why the admin spaces, as you'll notice, sort of distributed throughout the building. It's not all in one corner of the building, but we have a bunch of different admin spaces on various floors of the building so that, if students want to ask a question, there is a faculty member that's easily available to them. And it doesn't have to be this, thing where they have to go all the way down to the bottom of the building and out to the corner in order to get their question answered. So that was just, quickly on sort of the programmatic reasons. But yes, college access will be used throughout the building for a variety of purposes, and we can relabel that to better reflect that use on the plans.
Okay, great. Thank you. Very helpful.
Sure.
Can I also I wanted to address a couple other points also relating to what Andrea just mentioned, is that this landscape corner lot, which we will give you and provide you to show you what's being envisioned here, is actually a really nice amenity for the students. The existing school front door is right off the sidewalk, and kids are waiting outside a lot and in the rain, in the snow. Having an area that has some generous cover, as well as just a place to ingress, egress the building, is just something that most schools don't get. And that's just having a little spill out space outdoor, as well as an inviting gesture for community activities, where we located most of the community engagement opportunity program near the lobby level. Is the gym is a huge one, black box. Another cafeteria potentially could be as well, which is above. I also just wanted to point out that one of the reasons why the plan is the way it is, we're actually limited to a 15,000 square foot footprint here. We tried to respect the ground floor footprint in order to not incur upon the client additional costs for emergency generators and other code requirements that start to kick in if the building footprint gets, ground floor gets bigger.
So that's the reason for that little cutout.
That's exactly right. That's why this is here. Exactly. Because it put me over the 15,000 square foot limitation.
So what goes on back there?
It's a yard, you know, there'll be some stuff. Be some
Okay.
use for
I
it.
mean, you have, so in, and I see Commissioner Shanda's hand up, just one second. So you were talking about the use, and I, you know, having gone to school in the city and knowing how, as a high school student, how annoying we were to the neighbors when we were hanging out in front of their windows. So that First Avenue building right there has windows of a residence. So I'm curious what your proposal is to make something lovely, but not drive them crazy, the neighbors crazy. So, you know, the first thing I was thinking of was like, I don't know, like an Oscar Niemeyer floating roof line that floats over so it keeps the noise levels down and doesn't rise above on First Avenue, but I don't know what the answer is. Again, trellises, something like that, but it's actually going to have to be taken under consideration in noise studies, and you can't assume that the windows on the little tenement building are adequate to withstand the noise from the kids who will ultimately be playing in that yard, right?
Okay, so I think that when we give you this plan, I think this discussion will be a lot easier, but what we have provided is essentially a wall on our lot line. This building, by the way, was built existing over the lot line. So they're actually encroaching into our lot, narrowing this actual dimension by probably a foot or two. They've overbuilt here, so we've been pinched on our lot. So we did build a wall, a backdrop here. The height of that wall is really what you're questioning, I think, because what we did is we built an architectural wall to provide a backdrop, but we also have landscape design with planting that is vertical, that small green that actually gives some visual obstruction. Your comment is more about acoustical isolation, and that would affect the height of that wall, essentially.
Right, but that's the first time I knew there was a wall there, because I don't have any information.
Yeah, I need to give you that. That's my bad. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Also, just quickly, in terms of the use of that space, like, you know, it'll be a place for students to obviously like enter the building and congregate in the morning, but we don't, you know, and maybe to go out for some lunch, but it's not going to be used as like, you know, for a basketball court or something along those lines. So, you know, they'll be out there for limited portions of the day. We don't anticipate that students would be out there all day long, just, you know, kind of hanging around or playing sports or something like that.
No, not sports, but the reality of what happens when you're at lunch break or after school, you hang out with your friends, and that's and as it should be, because they're kids, but there's also neighbors. So Commissioner Shanda.
Yeah, I had similar comments with regards to that entryway. You know, the statement of fact is very silent about why that entryway is there, the need for it, the programmatic use of it. I think those need to be clearly stated. And that is the reason why I had raised those questions. I understand the cost associated with building that out. And the fact that this would be a gathering area before the schools start is a good thing. It takes away the crowd from the street, and you have a gathering area. But I think the noise issue is a reasonable one, and having an acoustical wall would be helpful. So providing that detail is I think is a must. At the same time, the statement of fact needs to be beefed up. It does not have any reference whatsoever about this entryway and how it's going to be treated or the programmatic need of it. That So those really are my comments. And if you can also provide the detail of the wall of that rear open area next to the black box, just in terms of what height it is. That's all.
Yes.
Over here?
Yeah, that little rectangle in the back.
Okay.
Yeah, that minus 15,000 square foot leftover space.
Yeah, okay, all right, I understand. All right, okay.
Yeah, leftover still gives you a design problem, which means you need to do something with it. That's not.
Because, I have to say, as Madam Chair said, we as students will always look for a quiet space where nobody has eyes and ear. And if you can go and sit there and chat a little bit, that's fine. But you need to make sure it's secure. There's even though there's a White Castle next to it, you just need to make sure that space is secured and there's enough of buffer created between that space and the space around it.
Got it.
And any residential building, I believe that's a residential building right up on First Avenue.
I think that's a church. That's a church.
It's a church.
Oh, okay, so
it's a church.
Okay.
It's really, I think the issue is there's a build out, a
Yeah.
full lot there. It's really probably more this side.
Yeah, it is built to the lot line almost.
Yeah.
The first floor is built to the lot line.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Lot 22.
Anything?
I'm just seeing if I forgot to address and comment.
I actually need to move our hearing.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I do appreciate the incredible depth that you've gone into and with your whole team. And I think it's really answered a lot of our questions. Now we just need all of that, as Mr. Lobel and Ms. Baton know so well, that it all needs to be now committed to writing.
Okay.
And also visual, so that you can support your claims with visuals and the backup materials. Okay.
Thank
so
you very much.
Shonda.
Can I have one question? And it is really just a question of why was a special permit not picked and variance was picked? Because the zone, especially I'm referring to the special permit of 7364 modification for community facility use. Why was that not picked as opposed to variance? Because there is no FAR variance that is being asked.
I'm taking a guess that they had to have owned this site prior to 1961. All of those community facility special permits are related to long-term ownership of the zoning lot. I don't know that they qualify.
So I don't think sorry to interrupt. I don't think it encompassed all of the waivers that we were seeking. With the variance, I think the ones that are listed in the special permit are just related to height, and I think some through lot provisions, but we were seeking like the setback, but we'll revisit that and explain in a submission.
Okay. To make sure that you actually qualify, because I'm not sure, it's not 7364, there's no instructions there.
I think it's 73641.
Yeah, and so then you look at it, it needs to be a zoning lot that was held, at least a portion of it, by the community facility prior to 61. I think that's the rule. But anyway,
we'll revisit it.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'd like to go to the public now.
Okay.
Okay, you want to announce the case?
Sorry, I was muted. This case is 2020-61 BZ 342-346 East 104th Street, Manhattan. This is the East Harlem Scholars Academy Charter School.
And if you'd like to speak on this case, please dial the number on your screen if you're watching on YouTube, 646-558-8656. And at the prompt, dial 929-0931-3424#. And I think, and the people who are already in our waiting room, there's a number of people. If you would like to speak on this case and you're in Zoom, please raise your hand. And if you otherwise are on the phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. And in the meantime, while we wait to see if anyone calls in, then how much time do you need to respond to these questions, these issues?
Chair, the school remains on a very aggressive schedule in an attempt to further the project along. So I think much of this is going to be provided by Stephen and Min. So I think we would seek as quick a turnaround as possible, maybe within the next 3 weeks. Stephen, does that sound accurate?
You're muted, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that in the next 3 weeks sounds good.
Okay, 3 weeks to submit, right?
Correct. And I would just ask Ms. Baton, who is also on, whether or not that was our current understanding with the applicant team.
Yes, we hopefully need a decision by the end of the year.
Okay.
Right. You also have open seeker issues, right? So we're not in control of DOT, DEP, air quality, noise, hazmat, all that stuff, right?
Right, and I think a new submission for the environmentals going in this week, right, Amber?
Yeah, that's the plan. We're going to work with Min. We're working on the playground noise right now, design and mitigation solutions there. So we're working very closely with Tracy on the seeker items.
Okay, so and in terms of that, I just want to make sure that First Avenue entry area is included in your analysis, and to clarify with Mr. Chu and school administration how that funny little backyard area is going to be used, and whether that presents any issues. I don't think there are any receptors there, but we don't know. And also in terms of the church, do we have any issues with stained glass windows or anything like that?
Not that I know of. No, I'll confirm it.
Okay. All right, great. All right, then. I didn't see anyone call in. Anybody who's in the waiting room right now, if you want to raise your hand, *9, if you called in, or if you're in Zoom, you have to raise your hand or we won't know to recognize you to speak.
This case is 2020-61BZ, 342 East 104th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, I think that's it then. So thank you everyone for bringing your whole team. It's very helpful when everyone comes, and see you soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Okay, we need to, Tony, I know that we have a lot to do. Take a 10-minute break. So 12:40 we come back. It's still the morning session though. We may crash into the afternoon session. Okay, 10 minutes, 12:40.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Everyone here? We have Sean. We have,
Mhm.
yeah, everyone's here. Okay,
Are we live yet?
you're not. Oh, yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, good. Okay. So we're back on the record. This is 2016-4463 BZ 6202 14th Avenue in Brooklyn. The Modis Satmar School. Mr. Goldstein.
Yes, Jay Goldstein.
Who else is in your team?
We should have Mark Mariscal, the project architect.
Yes.
Should also have Mr. Gutman and I believe Yoels, who are the representatives of the school.
Don't see them unless the last 3 digits of their phone number, of one of their phone numbers, is 045.
I see the names though.
I see the names, yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I
Yep.
see Jacob Gutman and Yoels.
Oh, Yoels.
And Mark Mariscal as well.
Mark Maris. And Yoels, what's
Mr. Schwimmer, Yoel Schwimmer.
Yoel Schwimmer? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Everyone else unmute. Mr. Gutman, Mr. Mariscal, Mr. Yoels, unmute, please.
Schwimmer, Mr. Schwimmer.
I'm sorry, Mr. Schwimmer. Nobody's unmuting.
I unmuted.
Everyone's on mute, yeah.
Mr. Gutman, you're not unmuted. Let me,
Mr. Mariscal's not on mute. I don't.
Now I'm on mute. I now, oh, no. I'm on.
Okay, raise your right hands. Do you affirm, no, these people are not unmuted. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions? You must respond to me, will not move forward.
I do.
I do.
Mr. Gutman,
Either that or we won't let him testify.
So
you won't testify. Mr.
can take
Schwimmer,
Mr. Schwimmer was unmuted a minute ago, but you can take Mr. Gutman out.
all right, Mr. Gutman or Mr. Schwimmer? Do you affirm to your testimony?
Mr. Schwimmer? Okay, I don't know what's going on. I think we can go on. I think I'll be able to respond with Mr. Mariscal alone. Anything else we need, we can submit in writing if it's something.
Okay.
I apologize for the technical difficulties. Yeah, my apologies. They were here. We're trying to get them on.
Okay.
Jay Goldstein for the applicant. I listened to the review session, so I'd like to answer the board's questions kind of in order. With regard to the 7319 and the finding that this institution be recognized as a school, we did go through a pretty lengthy, I thought, analysis of the offerings of the school and the classes and the things that we thought were made us a comparable school in line with 3204, 5, and 10 of the state education.
So before you go on about that, it's only in the statement of facts. There's no supporting documentation for it. I'm not accustomed to seeing that in our applications. We usually have the school administrators and they submit to us some, beautiful, something that they might have submitted to the Board of Education for accreditation. There's something more than just.
I can try and put something together. We did review other schools to see what was put together.
Mr. Goldstein,
Yep.
We're not going to compare this to other schools.
I'm not comparing. I'm telling you.
No, let me finish my sentence because you know very well why I'm asking this question. So let's cut to the chase. I need to see something formal that's not made up on the fly for the purpose of this application. There needs to be something formal that establishes that this school qualifies under those sections of the education law. And the existence of whatever that is from the Department of Education doesn't say that it qualifies under those sections of the education law.
Okay, I was not comparing myself or my application to any other schools.
Okay.
It's a new requirement for me. I haven't dealt with this in a while, these requirements. So therefore I was trying to take cues of what was been accepted by the board.
Okay.
And then tailor it to our school. I will work on it and try and get it to you. No problem.
But I just want to point out that you yourself are the person who alerted me to this requirement in a school that you presented way back in the day that clearly met the requirements. It was so beautiful, right? And you went through all the findings, and I thought, wow, that's so terrific. We need to do that going forward. So actually,
the magical piece of paper is there. It's very easy. So I have to work on it. It's not a problem. I will work on it with the school and present something from the school to try and achieve the goals.
Okay.
With regard to the alternate site search, again, this was based on a conversation we've had. I understand the board's points, and I can try and update it to match. This, again, is my first time doing a broker's letter. Till this point, the board has instructed me and has approved in my cases the way I did it previously. So we took this, we had a site, we tried to use the catchment area, which is where our students come from, as opposed to most schools I see have done the catchment area as a radius of the actual site that they're using. If the board has a catchment area they'd like to propose, I can look at that. We did a substantial catchment area where the schools are, where the students are coming from, and we found no sites that were available. We did go through all of the lots that were appropriate sizes, and we discussed it in our papers how we arrived at the conclusion that we did. I can look again and try and find available sites and go through why they're not available.
No, I'm a little confused. You're saying, you keep using the word I. This is the work supposed to be done by a broker. I don't understand.
I worked with a broker.
So, but let me just say, you keep using the word I for being both the broker and the programmatic, or let's say the pedagogical expert. This is supposed to come from the people who do this. The broker's supposed to be the one who's looking for space for a site in a distance, which is reasonable because all the kids are bused to school. So this is the other part I don't get. When we see other schools, they're like, well, we tried to have it over here, but we couldn't find anything. So we had it all the way over there, and it's still within the realm of our district, right? So it shouldn't be you doing this. It's not believable if it's you doing this, frankly, because it's the work of a broker.
So this came from a broker and the school. When I say I was referencing, I guess, the global I, my team.
Okay.
We did give you a broker's letter. We did give you charts and maps analyzing the sites that he found. This is a conversation that you and I had a while back where we have a site and therefore we have to go with what's available now. We had a congregant who gave us a site. So that's how this all started, but we did do a search of the catchment area, not where the school is located, but where the students come from. If you look at the catchment area, the school's actually outside of that catchment area, I believe. So,
Charlie Brown, did you want to jump in?
I don't think I saw that. I think what I saw was a statement that there were no sites of the size that we wanted at all in this district.
Was that from the broker's letter or was it from my prior submission?
No, this was your paperwork, and then I have, hold on, let me just look at my notes, and I have here, oh, I forgot where I wrote it. Yeah, my understanding was that you found nothing of the size you needed, and so therefore you looked at all of the available sites and none of them were available.
We looked at all the sites, but it wasn't me. We did it through a broker. I did give you his charts and his printouts, and I gave you the catchment, an updated catchment map. It was from Eretz Realty, is the broker who did the work and did the searching, not me.
No, but wait a second. That list isn't available sites. The list is unavailable sites that would have been great had they been available, but they're not available. That's a very
What we did was we looked at sites of appropriate size in the catchment area, and then we screened out the sites that are not available or were available, and if they're available, it turned out there were none available. But what we did was look at the entire catchment area for lots that were of appropriate size, just lot area, and then looked at them to see if any of those were for sale or available for a school, anything of that nature.
No, but that's kind of like backing into your answer. It's like, there are no sites. These guys gave us a site. There are no sites. Oh, we looked at all these sites, but they have buildings on them. Like when you go to a broker, let's say you're looking for an apartment. You
Mhm.
say, I've got 5 kids. I need minimum of 3 bedrooms. And the broker says to you either, oh, look at these 3 bedrooms. Or he says, I have nothing in the 3 block area you're looking at. I have a 3 bedroom that's 10 blocks away, a mile away. You go look at it and you go, but what I'm looking at, it's still too far away from where I want to be. So no. Well, that's what you do with the school. He shows you, okay, he says, in this catchment area, I have no sites that can support an 80,000 square foot school. But if you go a mile down the road, I do have a site. You go and look at that site and you say, it doesn't fit what we are looking for because the site is too far from our catchment area, or it doesn't fit what we're looking for because it's too expensive for our budget. But you got to look at something.
So we looked at, again, we looked within the catchment area, which was my understanding based on conversations. So we gave the broker direction on the size requirements for the school, what the school needs in order for it to meet its programmatic needs. And then we had the broker do a search within the catchment area, which is not actually where the school is. Now I understand you want me to look outside of the catchment area, expand the catchment area. It's something
right, because that's not really the finding. The finding isn't the catchment area, it's available sites in an as of right district.
Yes.
Within the area where the schools,
No,
the students.
it actually doesn't say that. No, it
That's
says
fine.
there are no available sites within an as of right district. And the so-called catchment area that you have is so narrow, I'd be surprised if you could find almost anything because it's such a narrow area. And you know, the other part of it is everyone always talks about, oh, it's individual lots. Well, we know that you also combine lots together to create a development site. Those are the kinds of things a broker would know. Well, outside of your catchment area, half a mile away, there's a developer who wants to sell off all these tenement buildings. They're all vacant, right? They were going to build something on it and now they're not. It's available for a school, right? And we see this all the time, projects where they've assembled a site for a variance and the variance is not approved. It's available for a school, as an example.
I can look at that. Is there a guideline, because I haven't seen it yet, of how far out you have to go? That's I guess the question, because the zoning resolution says within the neighborhood to be served by the proposed school. So that's why I did it as the catchment area is the area where we're searching, not as opposed to doing a catchment area within a radius of the site.
But your radius is so tiny. It's like an easy walking distance from the bottom of it to the top of it, and a 4-minute distance from the left of it to the right of it. How can that be a catchment area if the kids take buses to get to school? I don't understand that. When we look at catchment areas for schools, they're a school district. They'll say it's school district number 14 and it's this huge area.
So
let me even look beyond that. There are some site searches that say, well, we was shown a site 2 miles away that we could afford, but it was 2 miles away, it was too far. So it's like, you kind of have to meet that finding because that leads you to why you're here in this area where you really shouldn't be.
So we did a four avenue blocks by 20 blocks. I'll expand it. We can expand it into other areas.
I would say, you know what, to make it easier, just use the school district as because it's a much larger area. And when we look at other schools, whatever types they are, they're looking at the school district and maybe a little bit of the edges of the adjacent one, because they need to service the kids in that district. And it's at least something we can understand, because at the moment it seems so arbitrary and it's culling it down to 0 sites available. Broker showed me no sites in this whole area. And then that's the end of that.
We can work on it. And if the board has a sample of one that they were happy with, I'm happy to look at it and try and tailor it to my case as well, so that we don't have to go through this again. Again, this is my first time using a broker's letter. Historically, for my cases, I've done it, where I've screened them out. So I'm happy to work with the board's direction.
Okay, we'll see if we can.
Okay.
Now with the lab, that's easy.
Okay. With regard to the as of right plans, this is my mistake. I misunderstood what was mentioned at the last hearing. I thought at the last hearing, we initially showed you as of right plans as a single building. I understood you to requesting 2 separate buildings complying solely with their bulk. So we'll adjust it and put it back to the as of right.
Before you go on with that,
Yeah.
the point is that the lot is a split lot, and the original zoning analysis was the as of right, treated it as if it was a pre-61 lot where you can move floor area and everything else around on the lot. Unless you can establish that it's a pre-61 lot, it isn't, and therefore you don't get to use the split lot rules. You have to right?
I misunderstood your direction. I actually did do, subsequent to the hearing, did do the title search to see if it was single ownership pre-61. It actually came to single ownership in 64. So we can't utilize the pre-61 regulations. But we'll provide you with the as of rights showing the combined building and separating the zoning districts. We'll provide context drawings. With regard to the vault, we understood the board's questions and comments. We're happy to work with the board to have it reviewed for the utilities, as the chair mentioned. Also, we'll work with the DOT to make sure that the trees and root lengths can be maintained on this excavation.
I think the other message that you were hearing is commissioners thinking that it's not appropriate to use city property for the expansion of your cellar. It's one thing if it's for utility rooms, that's usually what vaults are for, but not for your, storage to enlarge your, let's just say the room that's going to be used to have events in and enlarge the kitchen. It's not for that. So I'm not understanding or nobody is understanding the sort of space grab, and I think it should be reduced to just be the amount of vault space necessary to bring utilities in from the street.
Okay, so we did show the utilities. We didn't have exact dimensions, but we'll work with the architect to address that concern.
And if it's for utilities, you need to get in touch with Con Ed. Let's say it's for electric utilities, you need to get in touch with Con Ed to agree on the size, whatever size they require based on your needs. That's what we want to see on the drawings, nothing more. Thank you.
Next comment was with regard to street trees and why the number was reduced. Mr. Mariscal looked at the street tree requirements and reduced it to meet what he believed the regulations were. All of that has to be confirmed with parks anyways as to types and sizes and number of trees. So we can put on our plans the code section that we followed, understanding how we did or how he did the calculation.
No, not the code section. So you don't have any curb cuts on this street, right? On this frontage. So other than fire hydrants and things like that, light poles, I'm not sure what it is that would prevent the installation of a street tree. So don't show us the section, show us compliance with distance from
Yes.
DOT and Parks Department installations and
Right.
why it can't meet that spacing requirement. I see Mr. Maris.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Got that, right?
A detailed section, provide a detailed section through parapet and acoustical barrier, no problem. You want the fence setback for FDNY and to reduce the view from the street. That's fine. With regard to window wall attenuation, it's noted on the plans. We noted it, but it's only required along 14th Avenue to a height of 20 feet.
Where is it noted? I don't find it.
Just for an example, sheet A5, the top of the page has note 4.
Oh, okay.
And then it's also noted on the elevation plans.
But
And
so
A4 also.
A5 is okay. And A4 is also there?
Yeah,
Right,
yes.
and then we have it on the elevations.
Wait, I don't find
Oh,
it.
no, sorry, let me see. No, A5, sorry, is the first floor. So it should be on A6 and A5.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah, I see it on A4, A5 and A6.
And it's
Why
also-
isn't it also on A7? Like, why isn't it on all the floors?
Because it's only required up to a height of 20 feet. So we only put it on those floors, and then we put it on the elevations along 14th Avenue where it's also required. We didn't think it appropriate on floors that it didn't pertain.
So wait a second. According to that, it would be on A12A. I
Don't see it on A12.
A12 is 62nd Street. It's only required on 14th Avenue, along the 14th Avenue facade.
Okay, A13.
A15
Okay.
and 15A.
Okay. With regard to bus parking, I understand your comments and we'll work on it. We continue to work on it. The space we found, it was accessory parking to a community facility, but I understand your concern and we will look for an appropriate site in a C or an M district.
So what about the existing buses?
Those will be part of it. The existing buses are parked on site. We're proposing to combine three buildings into the building. So all the buses that service all of the schools will be parked off-site.
So that
No, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Right now, the site is being used for school bus parking.
Right, we have open manufacturing site, lot.
Okay, and those school buses are for your school or for other schools?
Our school.
Your school?
So they'll be moved
Wait a minute. Your school located where?
along 15th Avenue, the three locations that we have in Borough Park.
You need to explain this much better. I
don't
know where those locations are. I don't know why those buses are parked there and whether they service maybe other schools.
So we have three girls locations throughout the area in Borough Park servicing the existing school. The buses,
Okay.
when they're done, park on site.
Okay. But that's not going to be the case any longer. You found a
No,
different
it's not.
location.
Right, when we find a bus location with a lease, we have to move those buses and we'll put them there.
Okay, and so all the buses for all three locations are going to be held at that one. Okay.
That's correct.
And you're going to have enough, and that's a big enough space for all those buses?
That's what we're looking for.
So have you located the spot?
We had one location we were working on where the chair said it's not an appropriate site. So now we have to look for additional site that can accommodate our busing.
Madam Chair, do you want the addresses of the other sites and the number of students or
Yes.
that bus?
This is the first we learn of the buses parked on the site. I don't like having to figure this stuff out for myself and discovering it on our own. We need upfront information, and I know, Mr. Goldstein, this is not you. I know that you are very upfront with your applications, but we need, and your client needs to hear us. We need the upfront information, and nothing can be concealed from us, or we will just find it out, and then that will lead to us denying the application because we're finding things out like this on the fly, all right? So step one is we need to know the location of the other schools. We need to know, and we need photographs of them, and to know that there's no bus parking for those schools in front of the schools, that it's actually is housing the buses that are now on this site. If there's a lease for this site, we need it because maybe it's a lease agreement with those schools. I mean, I don't really understand.
It's our site, so I can give you what you're asking for. I thought it was in my papers, the locations of the other schools.
It may be there, but we just learned for the first time that the buses are parked on this site for the other schools. There are a lot of buses parked on this site, and how one could have imagined that you would get all of those buses on that 50-foot wide site on.
No, they're not parked in the residential district. They're parked on our development site.
I know that. No. You're suggesting that they move to this other location. That is a small site for a lot of buses.
I understood the point, no problem.
All right, so I don't get it. So please don't allow your client to suggest sites that are not legal and that are not adequate to fit the number of buses we currently see. And we also need to know that are these 3 schools consolidating onto this school?
Yes.
Okay. So, but this school is enlarging
It's
compared
proposed.
to those schools.
Correct. The purpose of the variance is to allow for the growth of the school, continued
So
growth.
therefore, more school buses.
Correct. We did a calculation of the number of school buses for this site based on max occupancy of our site.
All right, so then more school buses than are currently shown parked on this lot. Therefore, an even bigger lot is necessary.
The lot we will provide when we find an appropriate lot will show perhaps a bus parking plot plan to show how it fits.
And that there's no other bus group that's already there, right?
We'll have a lease for the number of parking spaces and
accommodate for the existing spaces. So, you know, I beg you, do not allow yourself to submit without realizing that the site that they're selecting already has buses on it or a development plan already scheduled.
I do my best to ensure that.
I know you do, but sometimes,
okay.
You know.
Next, with regard to school safety and DOT, so this actually goes to Commissioner Otley-Brown's comments and Commissioner Shabetta's comments as well. We did surveys of the walking of how the students will walk to and from the school. We're working with school safety to try and make sure that whatever plan we come up with, including crossing guards or the like, is implemented. Because of COVID, and now, you know, I think they lifted the restrictions in this area for 3 days, and then the restrictions went back into place. So that DOT and school safety has taken longer than we anticipated, but we'll continue to work with them. As soon as they let us do the actual counts, we can come up with a school safety walking. They have a walking site map where we have crossing guards and the like. So as soon as we're able to do the survey, we can continue to work with school safety and DOT on that issue. The rest, noise, air quality is still open. We're waiting for DEP. LPC and E designation, we have sign off as mentioned. Commissioner Shanda, so the question regarding alternate site and vaults, I think we've addressed, Commissioner Shanda, or Vice Chair Shanda, but with regard to Title I, at the last hearing, Commissioner Shetta actually mentioned the therapies, and the chair mentioned that there are a lot of therapies rooms and you do see a lot of therapy rooms. So I just want to explain the difference between the Title I therapy versus the smaller therapy rooms. Title I is a program where students are taken out into small clusters. So they'll break up class into small clusters, and it promotes socializing, appropriate socialization, and learning on small group scale through this program, which is called Title I. Those rooms can't be a one-on-one therapy room. So you see 1 or 2 of these larger rooms where the interior of the room will be artificially broken up into little clusters, and those groups will take advantage of this therapy. And the rest of the therapies are, you know, what's routinely seen. First of all, Title I is routinely seen in a lot of the schools I've brought before this board, and the other therapy rooms as well. You'll have speech and homework and penmanship or whatever other therapies are available to these students. And we comment in our papers that we have a number in the lower grades because we like to give them a good running start, where a lot of students do get services, and we want to be able to accommodate all of the services. The more physical therapies, or actually physical therapy and occupational, will happen throughout the building, in the gym or in the lunchroom throughout the day, depending on the schedule. So if you have a question about the Title I, I'm happy to answer it.
I guess my question, which was the question we had before, is we see so many schools. Why are there so many therapy rooms in a school? I just don't, I mean, it's not a school that specializes in, I mean, we've seen schools that are specialty schools that maybe have a lot of therapy rooms, but this one's, as far as I can tell, not a special therapy school. Why are there so many?
But you do have a lot of, and I've had cases where we've had this many, if not more, therapy rooms in our schools. My children's schools, for instance, have therapy rooms throughout, because the amount of services provided to younger kids to give them that head start has increased over the years. Much more, I don't even remember going out when we were kids. I had a penmanship class that I had to take out of class to go to, but now almost every student will be taken out during the day a number of times to go to a one-on-one therapy to help them with their studies. So you do need more therapy rooms for one-on-one teacher interaction. So it's something that, I mean, it's not unique to the school, and it's not, it's something that provides a benefit to these students that we think is immeasurable. Commissioner Otley Brown, we spoke about the alternate site, and I will work on it. With regard to the plans, it is a 10-foot parapet wall. That's DOH regular, 10-foot rather,
Fence.
4-foot parapet with a 6-foot fence. If there was a mistake and it said 8, I apologize, but we'll correct it. It's 10 feet per.
It was a mistake.
Article 47. Next was with regard to the reference standard. So we have marked on our plans, all of the classrooms are following either building code or Department of Health for the size of square footage per student in a room. So the classrooms are designed based on building code and DOH, and we discussed that in my papers, and it's noted on the plans. At the last hearing, Commissioner, you asked me a question of, am I overreaching in the size of the building and in the square footage per student? And you mentioned that I should go and look at other schools in the area to see what their square footage, total square footage per student was, to see if we're in line with those schools. That's why we provided you with the other board approvals to say what they approved and what we're requesting. So it was in response to what I believed was your question, but the classrooms, the size of the classrooms are governed by building code and DOH. And if you do the calculations on the rooms, it amounts to 20 or 30 square feet per person.
Right, so I wanted you to just cite that you were using the 2014 building code as the basis for your sizes. And
Right.
what I meant by schools, and I should have been more specific, I'm sorry about that, is usually we see a comparison to public schools.
Okay.
And to see that you're more or less on the same line as public schools.
So you wanted for public, because you asked me for other board approval specifically, that's why we did it that way?
I don't know that I said board approvals. I think I just said schools, and
Okay.
I wasn't, specific enough because.
I can look at the public schools and see if the public schools, but to the table and the classroom sizes, it's noted on the plans as well. It's note number 3, where we do say that the maximum occupant load approved by DOB per table 1004.1.1.1, and that classrooms are 20 net square feet, kindergarten is 30, and as per DOH Article 47, preschool is 30. So we give for the classrooms, we did note on the plans, and I do mention in my papers, the square footage per student. But now understanding your point for the other aspects, we'll go to the public schools and see what they offer using, I guess, as Commissioner Shada mentioned, using SCA as our guideline to see what's proposed. Or
and I'm sure you'll fall below their range also.
We're quite low on the square footage per student. I believe I've seen much larger, so we'll work on it. And Commissioner Shada.
If you're gonna research some schools for.
Uh-oh, you're frozen.
If you're gonna research some schools for. I'm sorry, do you hear me?
No. Say it one more time.
Okay.
Now you're frozen.
Sorry about that. If you're gonna research some school applications for the class size, can you do the same for how many therapy spaces are in these schools?
Well, we're going to do not necessarily the class sizes, but the overall building sizes, but I can try and see, I don't know if that information will be readily available in terms of how many therapy rooms are in the public schools.
It won't be, even in our resolutions, it's not going to say how many therapy rooms there are. You'd end up having to look at the floor plans of the.
I don't know that that's going to be available. I can look at for guidance, in terms of the square footage per student.
Well, Mr. Mariscal, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, you designed so many of these schools. Maybe you can weigh in on the preponderance of therapy rooms in the various schools that you do. And how do you decide how many there are? Because you're actually the one handling the program, right? Your client is telling you something and then you're like, well, that means you need this. So how are you coming up with how many rooms there are?
Okay, yes, I'll do that.
I actually think that the schools that I did look at and did analyze for overall square footage of students, I think 3 of them were Mr. Mariscal, so we can work together. He can tell you how he designed this building, and I can work on responding to the broader question. Commissioner Shadow, with regard to the growth chart, we did reduce it. I'm seeing pre-1A, which is, I think that's what you mentioned, is reduced because we're limiting it to 3 classrooms at 25 kids per classroom. So that's why the overall pre-1A grades were reduced. The 4th grade from current to the first year was reduced because we did, instead of doing what I did in my prior, which was actually what we do anticipate as the growth, here I just took 1st grade and every year we incremented from 1st grade down. So if you look at the current year, the 3rd grade has 44 and the 4th grade has 48. At the first year of the school, the 4th grade will have 44 and the 5th grade will have 48. So it just drops by 1. So the classroom sizes don't really change. It goes till they hit maximum. And then I believe we touched on all the other questions with regard to bus parking vaults and the walking, site safety and walking. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, because we don't know anything about the size of this building relative to the neighborhood. We don't have anything on.
So I mentioned, I'll provide you with the context drawings that you requested and go through it. I mentioned that at the beginning.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Anything else, anybody? All right, so let's go to the public.
Okay, the application we're discussing is 2016 4463BZ, 6202 14th Avenue in Brooklyn. It's the Modas Satmar School. You want to call in at 646-558-58656. The Zoom webinar ID number is 929-0931-3424, and the passcode is 816917.
No, 816971.
Oh, 971. Ugh.
Okay. In the meantime, how much time do you need to
I mean, 2 months. I'll say 2 months. I think we can do it in less time, but I know I'm not going to get a hearing scheduled before then anyways, given the board's calendar.
Well, in addition to which you all have open environmental.
Right.
So at least that much. And we don't know when the
COVID list.
Yeah.
So I was working with Tracy as of Friday afternoon, trying to find, see if there's any available information so that we can work with DOT and school safety with existing locations that are more current. And maybe we can try and work that way if they'll allow us. Otherwise, you're right. I don't know how long that's going to last.
Okay.
That was a big reason why this was delayed as a result of COVID, why this was delayed almost a year just now.
Well,
the board's fault, not anyone's fault, but we couldn't do a lot of the work that we had to do to respond to these comments.
Well, our last hearing was in December, and
we were supposed to have a hearing
May.
April,
yeah. Okay. Fair.
Yeah. No, I apologize. But we're trying to work as best we can. We thought we were going to go out this week to do the traffic studies.
Okay. So I just want to see, I don't think anyone who's in the attendee list is speaking, but just to make sure, because I don't recognize all the names, if you want to speak and you're in the attendee waiting room, please raise your hand by either doing it using Zoom, raise your hand, or if you're on a phone, *9. Okay. All right. So we're going to allow that at least an 8-week submission time. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item, 2019-16 BZ 25001 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Hi, good morning, Neil Weisbard. Good afternoon, Neil Weisbard, on behalf of the applicant.
Hi. Go ahead.
Okay. Sworn to, do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes, I do. Hi, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I attended review session and I'll go through the comments quickly. I don't think there's a lot here. We repaired the cracks, but the board's asking for a top coat. So we are looking into that. I've already spoken to the architect. We will do that. There was a comment about the wall of the adjacent building needing a paint job. That is not under our control. That's another owner. So I don't think we can do
But
it.
I mean, I'm just curious, sometimes, you know, businesses will say, can I paint your wall because it's affecting my business? That may be the case here. So before you jump to the answer, maybe reach out to your client and see whether that's the case, because it's unsightly and it affects the aesthetic of their business, right?
Okay, I will talk to corporate. I talked to them on Thursday, so I'll have an answer on that. I and the architect did not see those portions of the picket fence that were not repaired, and we will fix those right away. And we will make sure landscaping is all as approved and proposed, and we can do that now before it gets cold.
Right.
And I believe that was it. So we're hoping we can close, and it take us 3 months to have the driveway done, the parking lot done. So if we could close and come back in 3 months with proof that all that we're saying we're going to do, we do.
Okay, sounds reasonable. Everybody okay with that? Oh, we have Tracy's hand up. Go ahead, Ms. Benke.
Yeah, the final EAS just needs a signature. We don't have a signature on or date.
Okay.
Okay. Right. All right. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, so then let's go to the public quickly.
2019-16 BZ, 25001 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Okay. All right. So if someone's in the waiting room right now or is joining the waiting room by dialing 646-558-8656 and the prompt number 929-0931-3424 and you would like to speak, please either raise your Zoom hand or hit *9. There's one person in the waiting room whose last 3 digits are 045. If you'd like to speak, hit *9 on this application for 2019-16 BZ, which is the McDonald's on Northern Boulevard. Okay, I don't think so. No response. Okay, so then I would like to make a motion to close and to do as Mr. Weisbard suggests, that in 3 months they'll submit proof that they've made the changes, the asphalt resurfacing, fixing the fence, and signing the EAS, and what else? I don't think, and maybe painting that sidewall if the neighbor gave permission, and installing the balance of the landscaping. So with that, motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Unmute
Can't hear
yourself,
you.
please. Unmute.
Sorry. Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Next item, 2017-272 BZ, 10-1946 Road, Queens.
Hi, how are you?
So then I would like to make a motion to close and please turn off your YouTube video.
Turn it off.
Right
Turn it
away.
Thank you.
YouTube video off.
Okay, raise your right hands. Ms. Folder, Mr. Hashadorian, you're the owner?
Yeah, of the CrossFit. Yep.
Uh-huh. He's a
Yes, I'm
client?
saying the CrossFit, not the building.
Okay.
Right.
Raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
We do.
I do.
Okay, proceed,
Um,
Ms.
Elise Fullader from Eric Palatnik PC. I have Mr. Hatchadorian with me today to explain this really complicated and annoying situation. We're not trying to hold the board up. We were just trying to work with what we have, which was pretty difficult in this situation, especially COVID made it even worse. I know it was started before COVID, but it just made this problem a lot worse than we hoped. And it's just a small, we heard Commissioner Chanda's comments and we thought they were really great, but we'd like to clarify, Jay's gonna clarify a few things for you because some of it is a little inaccurate or a little hard to maneuver. So he's going to explain that for you. And then we would love to work with your board to do anything to just move this application forward. So Jay, if you wanna explain the building to the board, you know better than anyone.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for seeing me today. I have been in this space for about 5 years. I've been working on this certificate of occupancy and PCE for 4 years. And I know this particular section has only been in front of you since, I think, since 2018. One comment was made regarding the small space. It is the same owner. The owner of my building basically owns the entire block and behind me as well. And they have owned these buildings for many, many, many years. And I only discovered all of this as we've been going through this process. Prior to my being in the space, these spaces were cut up and chopped up and allotted however they kind of wanted. And now that I'm in and trying to do this process properly, we're discovering all these issues with the buildings. So at the time, when I signed my lease, that small space was rented to me as part of the larger 5,000 square feet. And we were unaware that it was a separate block and lot number. In fact, now we know the address of that is on 46th Avenue behind us, not 46th Road. So I've been through 2 architects, 2 attorneys in the course of this time, trying to figure out moving this forward. There was a comment made regarding permits for building. We did build ADA proper permitted bathrooms in the front of the 5,000 square foot space to in preparation for legalizing this. And now the landlord and the landlord's architect who we've been working with have been, the architect has been, I guess for lack of a better word to say, very difficult to work with. And we're trying to figure out the best path forward. And I'm willing to give up that 300 square feet and or whether it requires resubmitting, or I've asked the landlord if he would change the tax block and lot to include that as part of our space. We've discussed filing, which I understand would require refiling with the Department of Buildings to get 2 separate job numbers, one for the larger space and one for the smaller space. So we've been held up because the architect and the landlord have kind of not been very helpful in moving this forward for me.
Yeah.
And now with having been shut down for 6 months, I'm now, there's a question of whether I can even remain open as a business, but now having to look towards hiring a new architect to almost start this whole process over. So
So can I ask you a question?
Please.
And I'm trying to load the drawings quickly so that I can see exactly. Are you aware of when you're inside your space, because the drawings make it look like you can really be aware, but are you aware of where that boundary line is between the building you're in and the neighboring building where you have, is it very obvious where it is?
If you look back, you see one big wall and there's a doorway through the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was in the mindset of thinking, oh, that might be a separate building, yes. What it looks like is a storage space in the back of one big room.
Okay. No. Okay. I just want to know is it obvious where the wall is? The reason that I'm asking is, do you have, for one, I know that during this whole crazy period, gyms are very restricted on what they're allowed to do. And my understanding is that even the locker rooms are not accessible or something like that.
At this point, I'm not even using that space anymore right now.
So,
and it's not even a proper, it's not a proper locker room. I have cubbies back there that people can store their bags when they come in. It's not even a proper locker room like men's and women's locker rooms. Mm-hmm. But at this point, with the Forward New York guidelines, I'm actually not even using that space because of the ventilation requirements. So right now I have that space closed off. We only opened 2 weeks ago, and I have that space closed off to members, and I'm using it for storage of cleaning supplies right now.
Okay, so what I'd like to suggest, if other commissioners are okay with this, is what if we just removed those spaces that belong to another building from this application entirely? You take that material, everything that's shown on the drawing, you take it off the drawing. I don't want to see any toilets or anything. You install some sheetrock over that thing or whatever it is the fire department allows you to do, because I could just see on Chief Daly's face, like, oh my God, what are you talking about? But something, in other words, to make it not accessible to people, but nonetheless safe for the fire department.
Right.
Which won't be something, and they'll weigh in on that in a second. And then if your drawing shows at least a toilet room, because you are also allowed to have a single toilet room at this point, or something that's in the rest of the space, to show that either you're going to install it or you already have it, because now finally the drawing just loaded. So
we do have 2 toilets that were built in the front.
And one of them is ADA accessible, at least based on the diagrams.
Correct.
So you would meet it. You would meet the basic requirement even by the current practicing standards.
So let's just have and you know, I don't really know whether you're going to need another architect in the story, because you need to move forward with whatever you have to do with DOB. You might be able to do that with the drawings you have already. I don't know the answer, but with some cooperation from fire department, which you'll get some testimony right now, but also maybe a little back and forth with fire department. What would you have to do to just not include that space as part of the deal, where we make a note on the drawings that it's not part of the application, there's to be no PCE use in that spot. And then we just call it a day, because I don't know what else to do for you. If you have a landlord that's unwilling to cooperate, the only solution is to sort of get rid of that spot.
Whatever I have to do to get rid of that spot, I will do. I will build a wall there tonight.
No, the fire department won't let you build a wall because
no.
Fire
Understood.
trap, right?
Understood.
But I've learned from them.
But right now that space is not even being used, other than for, like I said, storage for my cleaning supplies.
Right.
I have a question, and this is more like, if that space is locked off for someone to access it for any safety purposes, instead of a wall, would a fire resistant door
Well,
with a
let's get-
lock on it
Let's get fire
be more
department.
appropriate.
Let's get fire department to tell us what needs to be done.
Mhm.
And maybe, I don't know, so Chief Daly, do you want to weigh in on this? You may not see the plan in front of you, but go ahead.
I know the building very well. It was my first site visit when I was in there. I had to trace all the sprinkler piping throughout that whole block. It is a very confusing property. The owners over the years just subdivided it. The building department never really did anything. Unfortunately, the tenant there, he would have great difficulty trying to get a tax lot number and everything. As Vice Chair Chanda suggested, to have a 1.5 hour fire rated door that can be locked, and with the word storage on the door, the fire department will be completely happy, because the sprinklers in his space serves the space behind him, that little storage area, and adjacent building, all even way down the block. It's a nightmare, but yes, as I would vote that, as per Vice Chair Chanda said, a 1.5 hour rated door in the opening. Do you have one opening or two openings?
Just one, sir.
Or just the one? Just place a 3 foot by 7 foot rated door, and the fire department will have no objection.
And with a sign that says storage only,
Yes.
right? Okay, all right, and yeah. And we'll have to make a note in our resolution about that space so that future boards know what's going on, and not to get confused by it. And hopefully someday you'll be able to work something out with the landlord to reincorporate that space. But given what things are, you just need to open your space and like hopefully recover.
Thank you.
Can I
Yes.
get a bill of sale? When you purchase your door, I would like to get a copy of the bill of sale, given the description of the door. That
Okay.
is a 1.5 hour rated door at a Home Depot special.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And also, importantly, we learned this also from Chief Daly, never take off the little sticker on the side. That it's not really a sticker, it's actually a little metal plate that's nailed to the door itself that says 1 hour fire door.
In terms of the rating.
Leave that, don't let anyone paint it. You know, you can cover it over with tape so it never gets painted, but the fire department needs to see that, okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Well, see, we learned things from you. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck.
Any other comments from commissioners? Is everyone okay with this solution?
Yeah, and can we close it and get?
No, I need to go to the public, so I can't close it until I go to the.
Sorry.
Don't be in such a rush. All right, so 1:39. Yes. So I know what time it is. 2017-272 BZ 10-1746 Road in Queens. If anyone like to speak on this, please dial the number on your screen. Okay, so what I'd like to do is, as we're waiting to see if anyone calls in, I'd like to, and if there's anyone in the waiting room right now who would like to speak, please raise your Zoom hand or press *9 to indicate a raised hand when you're calling from a phone. Okay, so what I'd like to do with this is if you could please, Mr. Hachadorian, go out and buy that door right now.
Okay.
Get it installed right now. Take a picture of the 1.5 hour fire rated little label that's on the side of the door, and also provide us with a copy of the bill of sale that the chief asked for. And so that should be submitted prior to our vote. So we'll close this today and the vote will be shortly. Okay.
Okay.
That's what we need to see. Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, the plan, you do need somebody who can do something with the drawings.
Redraw it without that space included.
Correct.
Okay.
That's all. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, pretend it's not there, please.
Thank you.
Okay, I think, right, council?
Yeah, that's what we were hoping for. We just didn't know how to solve that problem.
No, I'm talking to our own council. Is our own
sorry.
council okay with this?
Confusing.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, all right, good.
All right then. So I'd like to make a motion to close.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta.
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
So I'm going to, because we didn't discuss this, I'm going to give you 2 weeks to submit. But if it takes a little bit longer for you to install the door and send us pictures, that's okay, okay? Because I understand it's hard for you to maybe find a contractor who can do this so fast, okay?
Thank
So
you.
I'm going to try to put it on the next possible hearing with 2 weeks to submit, and do your best to get the images in and the drawings as soon as possible, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate
you.
all of your feedback.
2019-35 BZ 235 Beaumont Street, Brooklyn. Ms. Folder, you're the only one?
I should
Oh,
have.
and Alex.
Yeah,
Mr. Latovsky.
yeah.
Mr. Latovsky, unmute yourself, please. Come on, we're moving along, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, turn off your YouTube.
Video, we're hearing you 3 times.
Okay.
Okay, raise your right hand.
No, YouTube video off, now.
Here.
Okay, do it again.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
I do. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Folder, start.
Elise Fullader from Eric Palatnik PC with Mr. Latovsky here. They were mostly design comments, so I thought Mr. Latovsky could best answer those design comments for you one by one, and if we're missing something, I'll step in.
Thinking. Okay, go ahead.
You good? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. So the comments in reference to the bedroom in the back, that is actually will be a bedroom. And the comment in reference to the flat roof, it will be tough to do a flat roof because of the ridge lines sort of connect each other. But if the board insists to do a flat roof, we'll be happy to comply.
So, okay, great. So we just want you to bring the height of the roof down. So when we say flat roof, it's just because we're designing in the air, right? So
Right.
the transition from the second floor to include this third floor needs to be more gradual than looking like a house flew around in a tornado and landed on the house. And in the process, you'll probably be able to do a better transition and a lower roof line because you're building on top of your roof. On top, your second floor roof is creating extra height. So maybe there's a way for you to modify the structure there too to reduce your height. Anyway, so that's just a general, we need the height of the building brought down. Please label the drawing the way it really reflects. So it says bedroom instead of storage.
Yes.
Okay. And then you're going to I'm just going to go quickly through it. You're going to fix the hatches so that it actually reflects what's going on. This is an existing building, right?
Yes, it's an existing building, yeah.
To which you're only adding the third floor, right?
That's correct.
So go back to your drawings and look at your legends, which make no sense at all and indicate that most of the building is new.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
All right. And go ahead.
Oh, I was just, you can go ahead. I thought you were saying, let me start.
No, I'm just saying, we need the totals for the existing walls to remain. So Mr. Latovsky, we haven't seen you in this application before, this type of application. So the main test is it's an existing building and that no more than, really in your case, it's not really applicable, but no more than 50% of the existing building can be removed in order to still qualify for this special permit, okay? So when you give us totals of existing walls to remain, you need to total existing walls versus walls to be removed versus walls to remain so that we see that more than 50% of the existing walls remain, okay?
So we are leaving 100% of the exterior walls.
There you go. But you don't actually show it on your drawings. You have a chart, but you don't total it up and you don't give us the before and after. So the before equals the after, right? But you need to total it.
And
Okay.
I can give you a sample, just letting you.
Great. And then
Crawl space, you mentioned? Crawl space deducted at second floor. That was one of your comments?
Yeah, why, like, you're not counting the second floor area called the crawl space as floor area, why not?
It's less, the height there is less than 5 feet.
But that only applies to an attic. Unless you're saying that that's somehow an attic,
But
it counts.
It's a space less than 5 feet, so. But I
Look
believe-
at the definition of floor area in the zoning resolution. If you're not in an attic, you don't get that deduction.
Okay.
Okay, this may be considered like a split level attic or something, but I don't know how.
I see.
Okay. And maybe, you know, when you modify this roof line, you may, because the spring isn't supposed to be so abrupt, right? The idea is to have a more gradual spring, and therefore that might incorporate it better, in which case your little border there on the second floor is no longer a crawl space. Okay. Okay. I don't know. We'll see. All right. I think that's it, right?
One more thing you mentioned, the CCD1, we're working on getting that approved. We got a comments back that we have to work that out with the plan examiner. So we're working on getting that approved.
Excellent. Okay. Any other comments from commissioners?
I just want to say that spring from on the second floor, the height is, at least as shown in the drawings, is more than 5 feet. So I'm not even sure it qualifies.
Right.
It's 6 feet 6 inches as per the dimensions provided.
Right. Okay. And unless it's an attic, you don't get to do it anyhow.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So then I'd like to move to see if there are any speakers from the public.
This is 2019-35BZ, 235 Beaumont Street, Brooklyn. You want to call in 646-558-8656. Zoom webinar ID is 929-0931-3424, and the passcode is 816971. And if you're calling from your phone, Zoom is what? *9?
Yes.
*9 to speak. And for your phone, it's *6.
No.
Oh, sorry.
*9 to speak.
*9 to speak. Okay.
*6 is about muting. All right.
Muting,
If anyone in the waiting room would like to speak, please hit your hands up feature on Zoom or hit *9. Okay. I don't think there is anyone. Okay. How much time to respond?
Alex, what do you think?
We could have it done this week. I mean,
Okay, then I guess your best date we'll take if you can have it done this week, but yeah, so because for time to review and get back any comments to.
Right, okay. All right.
Okay. Next case, 2019-201BZ, 285 Grand Street, Manhattan. It's the Willie CrossFit Gym.
I do want to add, Chair, on this case, we did have some sound attenuation questions. I was reviewing my notes from last hearing.
Oh, on which case? On Grand Street?
Yes, on this one.
Yeah, okay, yes, okay.
Okay, Mr. Noriega, raise your right hand. Do you have anybody else with you?
Mr. Midland might be joining us, but I don't think he's actually necessary to answer the questions.
Okay. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony for this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Go.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Noriega. I'm here from Sheldon Lobel on behalf of the applicant. We listened to the comments at the review session earlier today, and the biggest issue was the fire alarm application. We did file that, and I wanted to thank Chief Daly specifically for getting comments back extremely fast on that. So thank you very much. And yes, there were a couple of comments about sound attenuation. There are rogue boxes, these 6-inch foam pads that are used for weightlifting, and all the weightlifting is done. Those comments are noted on the plans, as well as the location of where they're stored, and show up on the legend for the seller plan as well. And you can see from the acoustic consultant, the letter that they had written for the prior application, the exact type that they wanted to recommend. And you can actually see from the interior photographs that those are the exact foam boxes that are provided. So we have provided those as far as the noise or sound attenuation for the weight drops. As far as the digital limiter, At maximum volume, there was a study done that at the first floor, even at maximum volume for the sound, it was barely perceivable at the first floor, about 1 to 2 decibels at certain frequencies. And there's a chart in that study, and certainly we can commit to maintaining those levels. But I think that the current tenants are dropping it by 25%, which is well below what's going to be done. But the limits are provided in the report.
Okay, so how do they're provided, so tell me again, what are the limits?
So there are different frequencies broken down, and this is in the the report done by Criterion Acoustics for the prior tenant. And it breaks it down by frequency, and they exceed the recommended limits by about 1 to 2 decibels in certain areas. And it breaks it down what the limiter, the output send level in the gym should be. And we can certainly limit it to that.
Just
Okay.
add, okay, just add a note to that in the statement.
That's what I want, not just in the statement, because I want it to be easy to find. Can you put that information about the limiter and the row box, as you said, is on the drawings already, right?
Correct. And we can include the decibel limits by frequency into the statement of facts.
No, and on the drawings.
And on the drawings, absolutely.
On the drawings, because the drawings are ultimately what everyone looks at DOB.
Fair enough.
In a fax, they don't, right? Okay, and then that'll be incorporated into our resolution. Yeah. Yeah.
The question I have about the roadblocks, are those are movable, so they're not statically there the whole time?
Correct. They're 6-inch foam pads that can be moved wherever the weightlifting is done, and the location they're shown on the plans is just where they're stored.
Okay, so I'd ask that in our decision that we state that those have to be used at all times during lifting of weights, etc.
And that note is on the plans that they have to be used for all weightlifting.
I didn't see that.
It's on the note. Let me pull up the plans. The note that's pointing to the platforms, it says all weightlifting shall be performed on weight platforms. 20 weight platforms shall be provided.
Good enough.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So, and then you'll just add about the limiters, and then that'll be part of our condition. Great, thank you. Any other comments, commissioners? Vice Chair Shanda, did you want to add something? No? Okay. So now we go quickly to the public. If you'd like to speak on this application, it's 2019-201BZ, 285 Grand Street, Willie D. CrossFit. If you want to speak on this, call 646-558-8656. Dial in number 929-0931-3424#. So, and if you're in the waiting room, there's still 2 people in the waiting room. One is a phone number. If you'd like to speak, hit *9. And if you are in Zoom already, then just raise your hand, your Zoom hand. Okay, so Mr. Noriega, how much time to make those quick corrections?
It's a matter of how soon you can schedule us, because I think those are very easy. I'm just going to tell the architects to copy and paste those exact decibel limits that are in the report.
All right, so let's just say it may not be the next hearing, because I don't typically schedule for the next one when we have something to review. So let's just say 2 weeks to submit, okay?
Understood.
All right, so I would like to make a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay, this is closed. This concludes the 10 a.m. session. We'll resume at 2 o'clock.
Okay, so what I want to say to everybody before we hang up, because 5 minutes still will get disconnected, we're going to go on to the 2 o'clock to acknowledge that we exist, and then we're going to
take a break.
30-minute break, okay? So we're actually
30 minutes?
2:30, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
but just show up at 2 for us to say hey, and then 2:30 we'll come back, okay?
Okay, fine.
Thank you, everyone.